Chapter 541. Hello, Silence. Silence wreaked havoc silently among the cities, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Newt Scamander ran after the source of the chaos, calling out, "Credence!" He hoped to halt Credence's rampage. "I can help you," he yelled, but his pleas only seemed to fuel the fury of the Obscurial. Newt narrowly avoided an attack through a timely apparition and continued the pursuit. The magic unleashed by Credence tore through buildings, leaving devastation in its path. Several aurors joined the fray, launching spells at the rampaging figure. Credence dodged the spells with desperate agility, his body shedding black, snowflake-like debris with each close call. Moran, a figure of chaos, floated above the rooftops, screaming in anguish before darting to another block. The auror's relentless attacks pursued him, and in a burst of violence, Credence stumbled toward the entrance of a subway station. Outside the station, a line of police officers stood armed and ready. Initially confused, their expressions soon turned to nervousness and fear as they faced the supernatural force. Without hesitation, they opened fire, but their bullets did nothing to quell Credence's anger. Instead, they only aggravated him further, causing him to charge. Overwhelmed by panic, the police scattered in all directions. Credence's relentless advance toward the subway station continued unabated. It was then that John appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. "You're not emotional enough," he stated calmly, his eyes swirling with dark energy as he faced the oncoming Obscurial. Just as Credence neared him, a massive explosion of black energy erupted. The two forces of darkness collided, shattering the ground and sending cracks sprawling across the streets. From atop a building, Newt watched in disbelief as the two entangled masses of dark energy battled. "Is that another Obscurial?" he wondered, observing the white-haired wizard who seemed to be containing Credence. "You are sad," John said, his voice resonating through the chaos. The black energy surrounding him ensnared Credence, dragging him into the subway station. Once inside, John's dark aura flung Credence toward the tracks before condensing back into human form. Credence, gradually regaining his human shape, looked at John with a mix of timidity and surprise. "You are the same as me," he observed. "No, it's not the same," John corrected gently. "I have learned to control my power. What's your name?" "C. Credence Barebone," he replied, his wariness lessened by the presence of someone who understood his plight. John approached Credence, his wand now in hand. Newt, who had apparated into the subway station, found himself blocked by an invisible barrier. "Anti-apparition," he noted, touching the barrier curiously. John stood before Credence, offering him the wand. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. As a former member of the Second Salem Church, Credence recognized the object. He reached out tentatively, touching the wand's intricately patterned surface. "A wand, used by wizards to control their power," he said softly. With a flick, John summoned the wand back to his hand. "Some powerful wizards can control their power without a wand," he explained, casually holding the wand. "You want me to control my power, but I can't," Credence admitted, misunderstanding John's intention. "No, you misunderstood," John clarified, kneeling to meet Credence's gaze. "I want you to embrace your strength, Credence. In exchange, I'm willing to help you learn to control it." John's body then exploded into black gas, enveloping the subway station before condensing back into human form, leaving the subway unharmed. "Control as you please," he stated, his control over the Obscurial power undeniable. Newt, witnessing this from behind the barrier, was astounded. How did he do that? He wondered, unable to believe someone could manipulate the power of an Obscurial at will. "Is that wizard?" Credence asked John cautiously, yet with a hint of hope in his voice. He wondered if John, like him, might somehow be related to his family. "I'm sorry, you do seem familiar to me," John replied, shaking his head regretfully, "but I don't know who you are." Credence's shoulders slumped in disappointment. However, John wasn't finished. "But does that really matter?" he asked, locking eyes with Credence. "If you can't find your family, then seek out those who feel like family." He extended his hand towards Credence. "Make a name for yourself in the wizarding world. When your fame and power echo through the corridors of magic, your family will come searching for you." Credence slowly lifted his gaze, studying the young yet persuasive face before him. "The family I recognize. Can I really find them?" he murmured. "You can," John affirmed without a doubt. "Make yourself strong, Credence." Moved by John's words, Credence hesitantly reached out and grasped John's hand. "Then let's seal the deal, Credence," John urged with sincerity. "Unleash your power." "No," came a desperate shout from Newt, who was on the other side of the barrier. "Credence, don't listen to him. You'll die." "You won't die," Credence retorted, his eyes narrowing in suspicion, while John calmly said, "Let me teach you a spell." He whispered something into Credence's ear, too quietly for Newt to hear. Newt feared the worst, knowing that if Credence continued to harness his power recklessly, he might be consumed by it. Frantically, Newt drew his wand, attacking the barrier in an attempt to break through. Meanwhile, outside the subway station, Aurors had encircled the entrance, casting spells to create an invisible barrier. More Aurors arrived, having confirmed the presence of the Obscurial causing chaos in the city. Graves, fresh from his confrontation with Tina, took charge, ordering the Aurors to halt. "No one goes below," he commanded, before making his way down to the subway himself. As the barrier neared completion, a figure darted past the Aurors and into the subway tunnel, driven by concern for Newt and Credence. Above ground, the Magical Congress, led by Chairwoman Seraphina Pickery, arrived to manage the crisis that threatened the Statute of Secrecy. The presence of nomads, including the father of the slain Senator Shaw, and their recording devices, meant that the magical community's existence was perilously close to being revealed. Pickery looked out at the crowd of nomads with a heavy heart, realizing that despite her efforts, the Statute of Secrecy might no longer protect wizards. The aftermath of this event could force the magical community into even deeper hiding, and the blame would likely fall on her shoulders. Back in the subway station, John's magic began to resonate with Credence, breaking through the barrier with a surge of energy. As the barrier shattered, John noticed Graves, consumed with fury, using an electric whip on Newt. John was momentarily ignored, a testament to Graves's intense focus and animosity. "Look at those people over there," John suggested to Credence, using his psychic magic to stir Credence's emotions. Upon seeing Graves, Credence's previously subdued feelings erupted into a tumult of anger and sadness, his body shaking uncontrollably. "Let it out," John encouraged. "Whatever you're feeling, anger, sadness, don't hold back." Whispering in his ear, John said, "Allow yourself to be emotionally liberated for a moment. You don't have to suppress your feelings. That's a sign of weakness. What you need to do is channel all your hatred and anger." He drew a circle with his wand and gently pressed it against Credence, tapping into the immense power that surged above. The wand began to glow, illuminating the area with a soft light, and John took a cautious step back. "Release it, Credence, just as I instructed." No longer holding back, Credence's body transformed into a swirling mass of black gas, tinged with streaks of red light. In mere moments, the entire subway station was engulfed in darkness. Graves, caught off guard and unable to focus on Newt, was completely overtaken by the display of power. Puppet beneath the oppressive shadow, he fell to his knees, his voice filled with a mix of fear and awe as he pleaded, "Credence." A haunting, silent scream echoed through the station. Under John's careful guidance, Credence unleashed his power in full force, a spectacle so overwhelming that even Graves found himself needing a moment to recover. Chapter 542. In a moment of desperation, Newt and Graves continued to apparate throughout the subway, evading silent but deadly attacks. Their frantic movements caused the subway station to deteriorate even more rapidly. Suddenly, Moran accelerated, creating a massive wave that engulfed the entire station, shattered the tunnel's ceiling, and burst into the open air. John observed the wand in his hand, its pattern gradually illuminating, charging at an impressive rate. "Good job, Credence," he murmured, estimating that it would soon be fully charged. The unleashed power wreaked havoc on the streets, leaving both wizards and nomads in awe and terror. A skyscraper under construction was hit by Moran's force, its windows shattering and scaffolding collapsing under the immense pressure, sending debris tumbling down. The crowd outside the magical barrier panicked, too frightened to even capture the moment on their devices, scrambling to get out of the way. Moran then condensed into a huge disk that covered the sky before suddenly shrinking into a sphere and re-entering the subway through a gap. A silent, terrifying force surged, putting Newt and Graves in grave danger. They lay together, seeking shelter from the dark force overhead. Credence, enveloped in a cloud of black air and emotionally amplified by John, was in great pain. As he prepared to charge at the two men on the ground, Tina's voice pierced through the chaos. "Credence, don't!" she pleaded. Credence, recognizing the voice of the woman who had shown him kindness in his darkest times, paused. The black air around him swirled gently as he fixed his gaze on Tina. "Don't do it, please," Tina implored, her voice filled with desperation. Encouraged by Tina's effect on Credence, Newt urged her to keep talking. Inside the black cloud, Credence reached out to Tina, the only person who had treated him with genuine kindness. John, noticing his wand was now fully charged, used its power to sever the dark influence over Credence, stabilizing him. Tina, looking at Credence with a mix of sadness and pity, tried to reason with him. "I know what you've been through, but this isn't the way," she said, promising that she and Newt would protect him. Graves, recovering, stood up and determined not to lose Credence to the silence. As Tina warned Credence about Graves using him, Graves countered, insisting he wanted Credence to be free. The situation escalated as aurors flooded the subway, wands raised and ready to attack. Tina pleaded with them not to act rashly, fearing for Credence's safety. John, seizing the moment, reminded Credence of a spell, causing him to let out a pained groan as he began to expand. Tina and Newt positioned themselves to protect Credence, while Graves, wand raised, threatened anyone who dared to harm him. Despite their differing motives, Graves and Tina found themselves united in their immediate goal to protect Credence. However, the aurors began casting spells, hitting Moran and causing Credence immense pain. With a twisted expression, he reached out toward John, eager to capture him and uncover how he had discovered his family. John, observing him closely, flicked his wand with a deliberate slowness. "Time corridor," he whispered. Around Credence's wrist, the Ouroboros bracelet was tightly wrapped. As the silent magical energy faced continuous assaults, it began to wane, eventually being replaced by a sphere of white magic light. This sphere of light exploded moments later, sending Newt, the others, and the aurors sprawling from the force of the blast. All the power that had filled the air moments before now subsided, leaving only remnants of black matter floating away like feathers. Amidst the chaos, John remained unshaken. He walked forward with a steady pace, feeling a pair of eyes tracking his every move. Turning to meet the gaze, John saw the complex expression on Graves' face and smiled. "Long time no see, Gale." In that moment, the man who had been concealing his identity realized he had been unmasked. Yet, what truly puzzled him, as how the elder wizard, whom he had encountered years ago, had not aged a day. After leaving Godric's Hollow, he had searched for the white-haired wizard multiple times without any success. It was as if the man had vanished from the world, leaving no trace of his existence. A man of immense talent and mystery. And now, seeing him unchanged after all these years, he considered the possibility that there was more to John than he had initially thought. John waved goodbye and, with a single step, disappeared without a trace. With John gone, Graves turned his fury toward the group he deemed fools for interfering with his plans. "A bunch of idiots, do you realize what you've just done?" he bellowed, frustrated by their actions and his own failure to secure the Obscurus. "Just a little more, and I could have enacted my plan," he thought, reminiscent of his previous attempts to seize power. Taking a deep breath, Graves responded to Piccolo's accusations with biting sarcasm. "Yes, history will indeed remember this, Your Excellency, Chairman." Piccolo, undeterred, argued he was responsible for the death of a no-mage, nearly exposed us all, and violated our sacred laws. Graves retorted, expressing his disdain for the laws that forced them to hide their true selves, likening it to living like rats in the gutter. "Who does the law truly protect, us or them?" Graves challenged, leaving the aurors speechless. His disdainful departure and the words he left behind echoed the madness of Grindelwald's actions in Europe. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Piccolo ordered the aurors to arrest Graves. As Graves attempted to escape, a wall of white light blocked his path. Faced with no other option, he turned around with a defiant grin, signaling the start of a battle. The aurors' spells seemed trivial against a wizard of his caliber. With a flick of his wand, Graves incapacitated several aurors. Newt, seizing the moment, used a winged spell to deflect Graves' attack and ensnared him with a rope of supernatural light. Tina, quick to act, summoned the fallen wand into her hand. Graves, now wandless and restrained, glared with hatred. Newt's suspicions about his identity were confirmed when a revealing spell exposed Graves' true appearance. Platinum hair and heterochromatic eyes, the very image from the most wanted notices issued by the major ministries of magic. Gellert Grindelwald. Even in defeat, Grindelwald's arrogance was palpable. "Do you think you can hold me?" he sneered. Piccolo, aware of the danger Grindelwald posed, assured, "We will do our best, Mr. Grindelwald." With that, the battle concluded, and Queenie and Jacob arrived at the scene, marking the end of the tumultuous confrontation. With Newt's magical case in hand, Newt Scamander gazed out at the illuminated sky, watching the last silent remnants of magic dissipate into the night. Meanwhile, on a tall building just outside the subway station, John stood with a casual air, one hand tucked into his pocket. He turned his attention to Credence, who was huddled on the rooftop, visibly shaken. The Ouroboros tattoo on his wrist, a symbol of his unique connection to magic, had miraculously saved his life from the recent peril. Credence's body quivered as the terrifying memory of his near demise haunted him. When John posed the question of their next destination, Credence lifted his gaze, a flicker of determination in his eyes. "I'm going to France," he declared, his voice barely above a whisper. As if on cue, a thunderbird emerged from the remnants of the shattered subway, soaring into the stormy clouds above. Thunder roared and lightning illuminated the sky, heralding the onset of a heavy downpour. John, with a flick of his wand, conjured a protective barrier to shield them from the rain. "It can make people forget unpleasant memories," John remarked, a hint of admiration in his tone as he referred to Newt's exceptional skills in potion-making. After sampling the rainwater, he added casually, "Then to France we shall go." The scene was a testament to their resilience and the unspoken bonds that had formed among them. Despite the chaos and the dangers they had faced, their journey was far from over. With a shared sense of purpose, they prepared to embark on their next adventure, leaving the turmoil of the past behind as they set their sights on France. Chapter 543. Hello, Power Bank. The fundamental principle of alchemy is equal exchange. To gain something, one must pay a price. Credence barebones survived, and John honored his promise. However, the cost was steep. Credence was nearly depleted of his energy. The wand in John's hand glowed intensely, illuminating his face with its bright light, reminiscent of a flare. Credence, weakened and exhausted, huddled in a corner, looking as if he couldn't muster any more strength after an arduous task. "Do you remember that sensation?" John asked nonchalantly, tossing the wand into his pocket. "That's magic coursing through your body. If the control of an ordinary wizard is like a faucet, then you, my friend, are akin to a burst pipe." He effortlessly lifted Credence with one hand, and, with a swift apparition, they vanished, only to reappear in an abandoned church. John carelessly threw the weakened Credence aside. "You need to learn control, for your sake and your family's. I can't always be there to watch over you." A cauldron stood nearby. John drew his wand, and with a tap on the cauldron, the stored magical power was released. The calm surface of the potion within the cauldron began to boil violently, threatening to explode with just a single drop. John then threw a rune-etched snake egg into the mix, employing a rudimentary method that filled the air with a foul odor. As the magic was absorbed, the wand's glow faded back to normal. "What are you trying to do?" Credence asked, propping himself up to watch John brew the potion. "You've absorbed my magical power 3 times now." "Yes, and this will also prevent you from losing control. Isn't that beneficial?" John replied, stirring the potion without turning around. "Without release, your magic will kill you. Release too much, and it will still kill you. Either way, death seems to be your destiny." Credence's expression darkened. "Is there no third option? Control yourself. Keep your emotions in check, and you might live a bit longer," John advised, chanting an arcane spell over the cauldron. The melody was ethereal, reminiscent of an elf's song. Gradually, the boiling subsided, and the potion began to solidify, forming a crystal with a drop of transparent liquid gently swaying at its core. After completing the potion, John turned his attention back to Credence, who seemed lost in thought. "You're going to France. We can leave tomorrow." Credence's birth certificate revealed his place of birth, fueling his desire to uncover his identity and find his family. John, however, saw little point in this quest. In his eyes, Credence wasn't abandoned. He was sent away by a family that had already forsaken him. Noticing Credence's despondency, John approached and offered him the wand. "Is it worth it?" he asked. Despite the risks, Credence chose to seek out his family, hoping for a connection that might ultimately endanger his life. Credence's demeanor had changed over time. He was no longer the submissive individual he once was. Accepting the wand, he watched as it began to absorb his power, channeling the dark energy into itself. The wand acted like a power bank, storing the magical energy. John had modified the wand to contain magic, a precaution to prevent Credence from losing control. Not every obscurial is like John Wick. Their fates are often much more tragic, John remarked, sitting beside Credence and gazing at a stained glass depiction of the Virgin Mary holding a child. "I knew a girl," John began, his voice calm. "At 6, she was injured and became an obscurial. Her powers killed her mother, leaving her only with her 2 older brothers." He described the brothers, one highly intelligent and talented in magic, the other less so and rather impatient. "Eventually she died too, during a petty argument between her brothers," John continued. "The older brother tried to hide her away, treating her existence like a dark, shameful secret." In this way, John shared a tale of loss and the complexities of family, drawing a parallel to Credence's own journey. John reassured his brother, "You don't have to worry about when your younger sister might lose control and harm those around her. This way, she can truly be free and escape the constraints that bind her." Upon hearing this, Credence slowly lifted his gaze to meet John's, questioning, "Doesn't her elder brother love her?" "I do love her, but she's become a burden, a chain holding me back," John replied, shaking his head slightly. "She's like a ticking bomb, and her elder brother is torn. He loves her dearly, yet he loves the world just as much. His love is born out of a sense of duty and moral obligation." John's expression grew complex as he continued. "Wizards only feel fear when they encounter silence. Even family members can be terrified by this unpredictability." "And what about you?" Credence asked, focusing intently on John, a wizard younger than himself, yet also an obscurial. "You're also an obscurial." "Me? I'm different," John said with a laugh, a mix of pride and resignation in his voice. "I'm stronger than all of them. Wizards are to nomads what obscurials are to wizards, Credence. You can afford to be strong and ruthless, but never weak and kind. That kindness becomes a source of endless suffering." John's words shattered Credence's illusions about his family, prompting him to reflect. If your family truly loves you, why would they abandon you? Why send you to the hellish Second Salem, a place that despises wizards? Credence had spent years under the cruel hand of his adoptive mother, a situation that didn't change until he unleashed his power and killed her. His feelings towards his family were a mix of longing, confusion, and fear. He was vulnerable, and when he encountered Grindelwald, disguised as Graves, the feigned warmth and attention were like a beacon. Starved of affection, Credence was drawn to even the slightest hint of kindness. But it wasn't genuine kindness, it was manipulation, a cruelty even greater than what he had known. "What's her name?" Credence inquired about the girl they were discussing. Ariana Dumbledore," John replied, standing up. Credence's next question was laced with apprehension. "Are you going to use me as well?" "Yes," John admitted candidly. "I need your strength." "The power within you is immense, Credence." Credence, fearing abandonment, whispered, "Will you discard me if you find I'm not useful?" He was terrified that John might be another Grindelwald, his heart heavy with fear. Despite this, the prospect of finding someone like him, a sense of kinship, was too precious to let go. John's presence gave him the comfort of an elder brother's guidance, despite John's youthful appearance. Over time, John's reliance on him was to help suppress Moran. John looked at him and stated calmly, "Make yourself indispensable to me. The choice is yours, not mine, Credence." "I'll keep my word. After we go to France, I'll need to leave for a bit," John mentioned, causing Credence's wand to glow brightly as emotions surged within him. "Don't worry," John said with a shrug. "I'm just off to find something." His words calmed Credence, and the glow from his wand dimmed. Inspired by John's faith in him, Credence attempted to channel more magic into his wand, only for John to intervene. "I need your strength, not your sacrifice," John chided before turning to leave. Credence watched him go, his body relaxing on the bench, contemplating the notion of a gentle yet powerful protector. To secure passage on a cruise ship, John had nearly drained the Sniff family's resources. Newt Sniffler, Sniff, gazed at its nearly empty nest and wept, a sight that even the usually comforting Newt struggled to soothe. It was a case of the hunter becoming the hunted, an unexpected turn for Sniff, who was usually the one doing the stealing. Upon learning of the theft, Newt secured Sniff's nest within a safe, assigning Sniff the new task of guarding against bowtruckles. This was because among the thing. In the vast and enchanting world of magical creatures, only the bowtruckles possess the unique ability to pick locks. These small, twig-like beings, with their keen eyes and nimble fingers, stand out among their fantastical counterparts for this peculiar talent. Unlike the brute strength of a hippogriff or the fiery breath of a dragon, a bowtruckle's skill lies in its delicate touch and profound understanding of the mechanisms within locks, making them invaluable to those who know how to befriend them. Bowtruckles are naturally shy and reclusive, preferring the dense foliage of trees, which they closely resemble, to the company of others. Their camouflage is so effective that they can be nearly impossible to spot among the branches. This affinity with nature, combined with their lock-picking prowess, often leads to a symbiotic relationship between bowtruckles and wizards or witches who practice herbology or need to secure valuable possessions. To gain a bowtruckle's trust is no small feat. These creatures are fiercely loyal to their chosen tree and can become defensive if they feel it is threatened. However, once a bond is formed, they can prove to be steadfast companions. Wizards and witches who have managed to befriend a bowtruckle often carry them around, tucked away in a pocket, ready to assist with unlocking doors or treasure chests that stand in their way. The method by which bowtruckles pick locks is a closely guarded secret, known only to a few. It is said that they whisper to the lock, coaxing it to open with a combination of gentle prods and turns, a skill not even the most accomplished wizard could hope to replicate without the aid of magic. This unique ability, coupled with their discreet nature, makes bowtruckles highly sought after by those in the magical community who value subtlety and finesse over brute force. Despite their usefulness, it is important to remember that bowtruckles are creatures with their own wills and desires. They are not mere tools to be used and discarded. Those who wish to benefit from a bowtruckle's lock-picking skill must first show respect and understanding towards these remarkable creatures, offering them protection and care in return for their services. In the magical world, where power often comes from the strength of one's allies, a bowtruckle can be a small but mighty friend. Chapter 544. Greetings, Delacour. John stood on the deck of the cruise ship, letting the sea breeze ruffle his hair. His pockets were a little heavier than usual, filled with a few diamond necklaces and galleons he had acquired from a recent venture into a dubious den. After converting one of the diamond necklaces into cash, John casually handed $1 to a nearby waiter, who responded with a radiant smile. Turning his attention to Credence, whose attire was noticeably worn and tattered, John inquired, "What do you think about purple?" Credence, puzzled, could only muster a, "What?" "Your clothes," John clarified, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "When you reunite with your family, you wouldn't want them to look at you with pity, would you? You should stand before them with pride, not seeking their sympathy." Credence, taken aback by the sudden concern, listened as John continued. "Paris is the fashion capital of the world. I'm certain we can find something that suits you there. And a piece of advice, don't take fashion tips from other wizards." John's gaze drifted to a portly wizard dressed in an eccentric ensemble, a clear sign of his magical heritage. In John's time, wizards had long since ceased trying to blend in with Muggle society, but it seemed they were still making an effort in this era. Noticing the wizard and his entourage, John mused, "We need to find you a place to stay, a place where you can keep your identity hidden." Credence nodded, understanding the necessity of discretion in their situation. Changing the subject abruptly, John asked, "What do you think about joining the circus?" Credence, confused by the sudden shift in conversation, watched as John approached the portly wizard. After a brief exchange and the ordering of 2 glasses of wine, John and the wizard seemed to come to an agreement, toasting to their deal. Returning to Credence, who looked at him with a mix of anxiety and confusion, John explained, "It's nothing to worry about. I've arranged for you to work at the circus as a handyman, a paid position, of course." John raised his glass to the wizard, who reciprocated with a smile. Credence, however, was left pondering the implications of John's words. Was he being sold out? "The air is so fresh here," John remarked as he took in the pristine atmosphere of the Pyrenees. The early morning clouds hovered over the plateau, creating a serene landscape. John had come here to conduct some research, finding Hogwarts less than ideal for his purposes. He was aware that a young Albus Dumbledore was currently serving as the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor at Hogwarts. John mused that neither the older nor the younger Dumbledore posed a significant challenge to him, despite the discomfort of being out of his own time. If I want to avoid Dumbledore's memory of our past altercation, it's best to steer clear of Hogwarts, John concluded. With Hogwarts off the table, John decided to visit Beauxbatons, where he had once studied as an exchange student. Durmstrang was another option, but his only experience there involved a mishap with a fireplace. As for Credence, his immediate future involved working with the circus, under the care of the portly wizard who had greeted him with a happy face upon their arrival. John had his own plans, and this arrangement was purely transactional, with no obligations on either side. Despite a hint of sympathy for a fellow obscurial, John was primarily motivated by his own interests. Beauxbatons' academic calendar aligned with Hogwarts, and John arrived during the Christmas holidays. He conjured the school uniform that Madame Maxime had once given him, blending in seamlessly with the school's aesthetic. In the grand European-style retro library, John perused a book titled The Power of the Guardian God, which detailed the summoning of giant-sized patronesses. Despite the holiday season, the library was bustling with students who had chosen to stay on campus. "Hi," greeted a girl in Beauxbatons' signature blue satin uniform, taking a seat opposite John with a confident smile. "I'm Cetalina Stewart." "Hello, Stewart," John replied with a warm smile, intrigued by the unexpected company. "About you? I don't think I've seen you before." The girl approached confidently, her large eyes framed by long eyelashes blinking curiously. "My name is Joel Delacour. I prefer spending my time alone, reading books in the Shanlin Garden," John replied, maintaining a composed expression. "No wonder," Stewart said, a light of realization dawning on her. It must be noted that the girls from Beauxbatons possess a boldness that their Hogwarts counterparts often lack. This was the 6th time John had been approached by a girl since his arrival. Come dinner time, John found himself enjoying Fleur's favorite mixed fish soup at Beauxbatons. The dining experience here was distinctly different from that at Hogwarts, infused with a touch of French romance. Golden candlesticks flickered on the tables, and any spills on the pristine white tablecloths were promptly cleaned. John spent several days at Beauxbatons, blending in so seamlessly that no one suspected him of being an outsider. By day, he was a fixture in the library. By night, he explored the secret room beneath the Nicole Flamel fountain statue. There, he set aside the dark god book he had been carrying and delved into its contents, focusing on the sections about time, soul, and curses, the 3 paths to immortality that the despicable High Airbo had pursued. John was particularly drawn to the concepts of time and soul as he pondered how to establish an anchor point that would enable him to return to his own time. The instability of relying solely on his ability to jump through time was a concern. The gate of things is even more unpredictable in this era, John mused, feeling a bit helpless. In the past, he could summon the gate of things at will, but now it seemed beyond his reach. My mentor is still present, which means the gate of things is without its guardian. To John, the gate of things was a far greater threat than 10 Voldemorts combined, having nearly been torn apart by it once before. During his stay at Beauxbatons, which lasted nearly a month, John had nearly exhausted the school's resources on time and soul. His presence began to attract attention, including that of a boy who had been observing him for some time. "Hello, Joel Delacour," the boy greeted, sitting down across from John. He had blue eyes and smooth hair, possessing the kind of looks that would often be the subject of girls' conversations. "What do you want?" John asked, his tone neutral. "My name is Dominique Delacour," the boy introduced himself, fixing his gaze on John. "I just want to know, since when do I have a brother?" Dominique was confused. After returning from a Christmas vacation, he suddenly had an additional brother, a situation that made no sense to him. His gaze shifted from John's hair to his eyes, searching for a familial resemblance. John felt a twinge of embarrassment at having assumed someone else's surname, only for a real member of that family to confront him. He sighed, a complex expression crossing his face. "I don't think you're aware, but it's understandable, given that His hesitation seemed so genuine that Dominique gasped, You're my father's." Unable to finish the thought, Dominique staggered away to write a letter to his father, trying to process the possibility of a family secret he had never imagined. Seeing Dominique leave, John quickly gathered his belongings and left. "This place has become unbearable," he muttered, picking up the Book of Darkness. As he was leaving, he encountered Stuart, the girl who had previously struck up a conversation with him. "Joel, let's go." "Sorry, I'm in a hurry," John replied, brushing past her. Stuart, who had hoped to invite him to Xianlin Garden, was left speechless. She managed to smile, saying, "Then let's go next time." After receiving a letter filled with fatherly love from his father, Dominique sought out John for a confrontation, only to find that he had vanished. Joel Delacour seemed to have disappeared without a trace, leaving Dominique with a mystery to solve and Stuart with an unfulfilled invitation. Grindelwald's capture in New York sent shockwaves throughout Europe, creating a sensation that was talked about in every corner of the wizarding world. Picquery, true to her word, employed the highest level of security measures to detain Grindelwald. On the day of his incarceration, the atmosphere within the prison was electric. As Grindelwald was led through the corridors, the name Grindelwald echoed off the walls, chanted by the imprisoned wizards who saw in him a beacon of hope for their future. Their wild shouts filled the air, unsettling the aurors and adding a palpable tension to the already charged environment. Chapter 545. Greetings. Azkaban. Piccolo observed Grindelwald with a keen eye, noting the absence of fear or tension on his face. Instead, there was an unsettling sense of comfort, as if he were returning home. "Keep a close watch on him," she commanded the aurors. The news of Grindelwald's capture had spread far and wide, prompting ministers of magic from various countries to negotiate with Piccolo for his transfer to a prison in their respective nations. It was clear that Grindelwald's capture held significant value, and Piccolo was determined to leverage it to the fullest. The media frenzy surrounding Grindelwald's arrest was intense, capturing the attention of both his supporters and detractors, including John. Having recently spent a considerable sum at a high-end clothing store, John was particular about the customization of his order. "I'd like some embellishment at the neckline," he requested, willing to wait the half-month for the alterations. In the meantime, life continued its course. A week had passed since Beauxbaton's departure, and Credence had been employed as a handyman in a circus for over a month. John, however, was in no rush to retrieve him, choosing instead to visit the French hideout, a bustling marketplace for French wizards reminiscent of Diagon Alley. Thanks to Sniff, John had ample funds to indulge in a bit of luxury. Seated at an open-air tea house, John sipped his black tea while perusing a newspaper article on Grindelwald. The Dark Lord's influence was undeniable, maintaining a high level of interest and discussion even after his arrest. The article also touched on the dangers Grindelwald posed and the events in New York, as well as mentioning Momerin, presumed dead, which for the time being kept Credence out of immediate danger. John's shopping spree in the hidden marketplace was fruitful, his bag growing heavier with gold. It was clear why some believed that housing halves Sniff could lead to financial ruin. The creature was a veritable gold mine. Holding a crystal-clear object in his palm, John marveled at the concentrated magic power he had distilled from Credence's energy, a potent substance capable of immense destruction or incredible power, depending on the user. With his preparations complete, John set his sights on Azkaban. His collection of souls was insufficient, and he needed to replenish his stock. Despite possessing a 1,000-year-old soul, John believed one could never have too many. As the pioneer in harnessing the magic of Dementors, he planned to use the sins of the past to augment his own magical prowess, albeit cautiously, to avoid future complications with the creatures. In an alley near the marketplace, John found a man with a shepherd's staff and a plush hat, his ticket to smuggling himself back home. Azkaban awaited him, shrouded in dark legends among the Dementors, a legend that spoke of a figure who could plunge them into darkness. Of course, that figure was none other than John himself, embarking on a journey that would intertwine his fate with the infamous prison and its tormented inhabitants. The rumors of a creature capable of capturing a Dementor circulated only among the Dementors themselves. The Aurors dismissed the idea outright, believing nothing could possibly overpower a Dementor, given that the only known defense against them was the Patronus charm, which merely repelled them. The Ministry of Magic's lack of concern infuriated the Dementors, but they were powerless to change the situation and resolved to be more vigilant. One Dementor, braver than the rest, scoffed at the danger. "Come on, that's ridiculous. We're Dementors." "So, you consider yourself very brave?" a second voice chimed in. "Of course, I am exceptionally courageous," the Dementor declared, only to freeze as it realized the anomaly of hearing a second voice during its solitary patrol. Suddenly, the air filled with the sound of jingling, and the Dementor turned to see a net of black silk threads enveloping it. In an instant, Y was gone. Credence Barebone found himself in a grim situation, performing thankless tasks for a circus under the guise of black work due to his status as a fugitive. His pay, after deductions for room and board, was pitifully low, even less than that of a house elf at Hogwarts. His duties included the most menial tasks, such as cleaning up after the creatures and assisting Kaba, under the watchful eye of the circus's greedy owner. Despite the harsh conditions, Credence clung to the hope that John, his mentor, would return for him. However, as time passed without any sign of John, a voice inside Credence's head began to taunt him, suggesting he had been abandoned just as Grindelwald had once discarded him. Credence fought against these thoughts, refusing to believe John would betray him in the same way. During a particularly low moment, Credence was comforted by the gentle voice of Nagini, a fellow outcast and the circus's star attraction. They shared a bond, both being misunderstood and marginalized. Nagini's reassurance and presence offered Credence a glimmer of hope, and he vowed to free her from their shared plight. Meanwhile, John found himself in Azkaban, determined to capture the Dementors that had been rumored to be disappearing. After several days of effort, he succeeded in his task, but couldn't shake off his curiosity about the dark experiments conducted by Extus, a figure as malevolent as the infamous Hirebo. John wondered if Extus, like Hirebo, had left behind any remnants of his cruel research, especially considering his use of souls was evident in the Dementor's behavior. This revelation prompted John to delve deeper into the mysteries surrounding Extus's experiments, hoping to uncover and put an end to any lingering threats. Transforming into a curse is akin to achieving a form of immortality, much like the unique existence of Harry Potter. However, this path to eternity diverges significantly from the conventional understanding of life everlasting. It's a dark, twisted semblance of survival that stretches beyond the boundaries of life and death, ensnaring the cursed in a perpetual state of existence that is neither fully alive nor truly dead. This peculiar form of immortality, as exemplified by Harry, is not sought after by many due to the heavy price it exacts on the soul. It's a testament to the lengths some are willing to go to avoid death's finality, even if it means existing in a cursed state, forever bound to the shadows of the living world. The allure of eternal life, in this case, is marred by the grim reality of what it truly means to evade death's embrace through such unnatural means. The journey into becoming a curse is fraught with dark magic and forbidden rituals, a path that few dare to tread. Those who do, like Harry, find themselves caught in a web of their own making, unable to return to the land of the living, yet unable to find solace in death. It's a liminal state, filled with endless torment and isolation, a stark reminder of the consequences that come with tampering with the natural order of life and death. In this twisted version of eternity, the cursed exist as echoes of their former selves, haunting the edges of reality, forever yearning for a release that never comes. It's a fate that serves as a cautionary tale for those who seek to defy death, a grim alternative to the peaceful rest that comes with accepting life's inevitable end. Chapter 546. Greetings, Malfoy. John surveyed the island, once the domain of Extus and now the infamous Azkaban prison. After Extus's demise, the Ministry of Magic had surely scoured this cursed place for any remnants of his dark experiments, confiscating or destroying anything of significance. It seemed unlikely that anything related to Extus remained. Yet as John gazed at the water gently lapping at the cave's edge, a memory surfaced. I remember seeing water, he mused, a realization dawning on him. If there was any place the Ministry might have overlooked, it would be beneath the sea. Transforming his lungs to adapt to the dragon's underwater breathing capability, John dove into the depths, swimming several hundred meters in a single breath. As his lungs began to protest, a sunken ship emerged from the gloom. Oddly, it bore no sails or rudder, resembling more a sealed jar than a ship. Dismissing a curious fish with a pat, John located an entrance, a broken door, now a gateway to the submerged vessel. Inside, bones mingled with silverware, while shackles and hooks showed the ravages of seawater. Magic had once permeated this place, but time had rendered it inert, allowing fish and parasites to claim it as their own. John's search soon uncovered a cupboard, its interior protected from the water, yet filled with parchments, many damaged by the sea. With a flick of his wand, he brought the cupboard to the surface to examine its contents more closely. "Experimental notebook," he whispered, eyeing the parchment. The cupboard was a trove of records, a testament to the numerous lives Extus had marred. Using magic, John dried the parchment, grateful for its durability and the use of special ink that had preserved the writing. Every dark wizard is a mad scientist, John reflected, poring over the records. Among the horrific experiments, he found insights into Extus's twisted genius. "I met the succubus once," he read aloud from one of the parchments, his voice soft. The mention of the succubus transported John back to his first encounter with Extus, who had assumed the guise of Ambrosius. "He has seen Ambrosius?" "No, it must have been Merlin," John corrected himself. In the magical world, Merlin was revered almost as a deity, a legendary figure born of a succubus, capable of entering dreams. Some tales even suggested Merlin was the offspring of elves and nightmares, hinting at the existence of an immortal wizard. "The Ambrosius I knew spent 1,000 years in the Dragonfield, only to exhaust his soul," John mused. "So, who did Extus meet?" The question lingered, hinting at a mystery deeper than the tales of Dumbledore or Grindelwald. John's thoughts drifted to the enigmatic Merlin, the so-called magic god of the wizarding world. Shaking off his reverie, John snapped his fingers, and the parchments flew from the cupboard, spreading throughout the cave before gathering again at his command. Thousands of sheets stacked before him, magically condensing into a single book. John eyed the blank cover, then decided, let's call it Extus, Mad Words by a Madman. The title etched itself onto the cover as the cupboard disintegrated, its remains sinking into the ocean's depths. Tucking the book into his bag, John acknowledged the time he had spent on this endeavor. Perhaps Diagon Alley will offer a quicker route to Paris, he pondered, unwilling to endure another lengthy flight. With wings sprouting from his back, he soared towards London, leaving the mysteries of the deep behind. London greeted him with its typical blend of rain and lingering snow. John apparated directly into Diagon Alley, ready to continue his journey, to be carefully chosen. John pondered his options as he walked through the bustling streets of Paris, the city's charm momentarily distracting him from his mission. The blend of magic and muggle worlds in Paris was unique, and he needed a place that could offer him the anonymity he desired. As he considered his options, John's thoughts returned to the encounter with the Malfoy family member and his companion. The conversation he had overheard was intriguing. It was clear that the Malfoy family, known for their pure-blood supremacy beliefs, was at a crossroads. The rise of Grindelwald and his revolutionary ideas posed a challenge to their traditional views. John couldn't help but wonder how these dynamics would play out in the wizarding world's future. Shaking off these thoughts, John focused on the task at hand. He decided to look for a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood where he could blend in without drawing attention to himself. The Wizarding World's post office and the encounter with Malfoy's men had given him much to think about, but for now, his priority was to find a safe haven. After securing a modest apartment, John set about making preparations. He knew that the circus's departure was a setback, but it also gave him time to plan his next move more carefully. The circus troupe's tour schedule meant that Credence would be moving across Europe, and tracking him down would require patience and resources. John spent the following weeks gathering information and resources. He visited various magical and muggle locations, always keeping a low profile. His experience in the wizarding world, combined with his determination, made him a formidable planner. He knew that when the time came to confront Credence and the circus again, he would be ready. In the meantime, John couldn't help but reflect on the broader implications of Grindelwald's rise to power. The wizarding world was on the brink of change, and John knew that he would have to choose his allies carefully. The conversation between Malfoy and his companion had revealed the deep divisions within the wizarding community, and John understood that these conflicts would shape the future. As John continued his preparations, he remained vigilant, always aware of the shifting alliances and power struggles within the wizarding world. He knew that his actions could have far-reaching consequences, and he was determined to play his part in shaping the future. For now, though, his focus was on Credence and the mysterious circus troupe. John was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with his wits, his magic, and his unwavering resolve. To begin, we must delve into the Muggle world. The story unfolds in a seemingly ordinary neighborhood where the mundane lives of its residents are about to intersect with the extraordinary. The sun had just begun to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows and bathing the streets in a golden hue. It was during this magical hour that our protagonist, a young boy with an unassuming appearance but a destiny far beyond the ordinary, found himself walking home. As he navigated the familiar streets, his mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. Unlike his peers, who were preoccupied with the trivialities of everyday life, he was burdened with secrets and knowledge that set him apart. He was aware of the existence of a world beyond the one he inhabited, a world filled with magic and wonder, yet also danger and darkness. The boy's name was Alex, and he was no ordinary child. He possessed an innate talent for magic, a gift that had manifested itself in unexpected ways throughout his childhood. However, Alex was also acutely aware of the responsibility that came with his abilities. He had been raised in the Muggle world by parents who, though loving and supportive, could not fully comprehend the depth of his connection to the magical realm. As Alex turned the corner onto his street, his thoughts were interrupted by a peculiar sight. A cat, perfectly ordinary in appearance, sat at the edge of the pavement, its gaze fixed intently on him. What made this encounter strange was not the cat itself, but the sense of recognition that flashed in its eyes. It was as if the creature knew him, understood him in a way that went beyond the natural instincts of an animal. Intrigued, Alex approached the cat, extending a hand in greeting. To his surprise, the cat did not flee or hiss, but simply continued to regard him with an almost human-like curiosity. It was then that Alex noticed something even more extraordinary. Tied around the cat's neck was a small, intricately designed pendant, glowing faintly with an inner light. Before Alex could react, the cat sprang to its feet and darted away, disappearing into the gathering dusk. The encounter left Alex with a sense of foreboding, a feeling that the boundaries between the magical and Muggle worlds were becoming increasingly blurred. Determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious cat and its pendant, Alex set out on a journey that would take him deep into the heart of the magical world. Along the way, he would encounter allies and enemies, face challenges that tested his courage and resolve, and ultimately discover the true extent of his powers. As the story unfolds, Alex's journey serves as a bridge between two worlds, revealing the complexities and contradictions that define them both. It is a tale of adventure and discovery, of friendship and loyalty, and of the enduring power of magic to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Chapter 547. Hello, Edgar. The funds I acquired from Shishu are dwindling. John mused. Despite Sniff's considerable wealth, it was no match for John's lavish expenditures. Initially, John had planned only to make a brief appearance every 2 months, but the circus tour's delay altered his plans. Wandering through the concealed pathways, he paused in an alley and turned to face his pursuer. "You've been tailing me for quite some time. I believe an explanation is in order." A tall man with a pale complexion and a slight smile emerged from the shadows. Lifting his head, he revealed dark golden eyes beneath the brim of his hat. "Perhaps you're not here for my flowers, are you?" John remarked, the man's gaze reminding him of Heinrich. "You jest, Mr. Joel," the man replied, removing his hat to unveil sleek black hair. "I am Wolfgang Edgar. You may not recognize me, but according to my sources, you are of paramount importance." John shrugged off the compliment. "That's quite the honor, though I'm merely a wizard passing through." "The great Grindelwald remembering me is indeed an honor," John said, his tone devoid of fear or reverence. Wolfgang studied John intently, intrigued by his reaction to Grindelwald's name. He knew Grindelwald's arrogance all too well. The only person Grindelwald held in high regard was Dumbledore, the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor at Hogwarts. The name Joel had come up frequently in conversations with Grindelwald, always in conjunction with Dumbledore. Only Wolfgang, Grindelwald's closest confidant, was privy to this information. Grindelwald's interest in Joel was as intense as his fascination with Dumbledore, if not more so. Despite Grindelwald's arrest, Wolfgang remained calm, aware that new members would soon join Grindelwald's revolutionary cause. Grindelwald's charisma was such that all who encountered him were drawn into his orbit. Wolfgang had expected to be contacted by his leader after recruiting followers, but to his surprise, Grindelwald reached out within a week of his incarceration. Wolfgang had received word. Joel had resurfaced after more than 2 decades. Wolfgang's mission was to find him. A chance sighting in Diagon Alley allowed Wolfgang to track John down. "Mr. Joel, may I have the honor of buying you a drink?" Wolfgang extended the invitation. John smiled wryly. "My company comes at a steep price." "I'm confident the Edgar family can cover it," Wolfgang replied with a smile. As the head of the ancient pure-blood Edgar family, he had the means. "Well, it seems I must accept," John conceded, noticing a striking woman who had appeared nearby, wand in hand. Her bright eyes and red lips made her resemble a black rose in full bloom, both handsome and glamorous. "Mr. Joel, allow me to introduce myself. Wenda Rosier," she said, her wand poised to prevent any attempt at escape. In Europe, Grindelwald's stronghold, John was well aware of the numerous challenges he faced, unlike the solitude he experienced in the United States. Wolfgang stepped aside, gesturing for John to follow, and with little choice, John complied. They entered a sparsely populated tavern where Wolfgang took a seat opposite John, and Wenda watched him closely from behind. "Wine from Austria, 1882, Wolfgang noted, swirling the red wine in his glass. "Wine, like people, only improves with age." "And what of you, Mr. Joel?" Wolfgang leaned in, his posture relaxed yet attentive. "You hardly seem to be in your 40s. Grindelwald has sought you out numerous times, but why did you never show up before? And why now, after his arrest?" Wolfgang scrutinized John, his gaze laden with questions, not just his own, but also those of Grindelwald. It was clear this was an interrogation, yet John remained unfazed in the presence of the 2 wizards. He gently swirled his wineglass, releasing the aroma of the wine, and chuckled softly. "You're asking too many questions, Edgar." Leaning back comfortably in his chair, John appeared completely at ease. "You ought to know something, but what are you willing to offer in return?" he inquired. "The price?" Wolfgang snorted dismissively. John replied as if it were the most natural thing in the world, equivalent exchange. "I think you're misunderstanding the situation, Mr. Joel," Wolfgang laughed, though it lacked genuine amusement. "Do you not realize that we are the ones in control here?" He gestured towards Wenda to emphasize his point. "You're mistaken," John countered calmly, shaking his head. "It's not you who controls me, but I who control you." Without even reaching for his wand, John's confident tone elicited a laugh from Wolfgang. John simply smiled in return. In the next moment, an imposing aura emanated from John, directed at the 2 before him. Wolfgang's smile vanished instantly. Wenda rose swiftly, her wand aimed at John with unwavering determination. "Don't be nervous. John advised, his voice still laced with ease. "This is merely a demonstration." As Wenda's wand remained pointed at him, John stated flatly, "Your magic can't kill me. You're welcome to try." "Wenda," Wolfgang intervened, halting her potential action. He looked at John, sensing that the man was not bluffing. As Grindelwald's right hand, Wenda reconsidered her stance upon Wolfgang's intervention and slowly lowered her wand. John tilted his head. "I once knew someone who used the killing curse. Not the brightest, but I assure you he was stronger than you." Wenda's expression turned serious, but John simply smiled lightly and reassured, "Don't worry, I'm not like you. I don't take lives without good reason." Wolfgang began to understand why Grindelwald was so fixated on this individual. John exuded power, confidence, and elegance. "So, what do you want in exchange?" Wolfgang inquired, curious about what this enigmatic person sought in return for his information. John smiled, hinting at the importance of leverage in negotiations. Perhaps the Deathly Hallows would be an interesting starting point. Wolfgang's expression darkened as he instinctively clutched the pendant around his neck, adorned with symbols of vertical lines, circles, and triangles. "How do you know about that?" he began, but quickly realized his inadvertent revelation and fell silent, staring at John. "Don't be so shocked," John said nonchalantly. "Do you still wish to know more?" Realizing the enormity of trading the Elder Wand, Wolfgang hesitated. After a long pause, he shook his head. "Perhaps we should consider a different arrangement." John sat up straight, lightly tapping the frosted wine glass, which immediately thawed, returning the wine to its liquid state. "I could eliminate Dumbledore for you. That should demonstrate my sincerity." The atmosphere turned icy. Wolfgang attempted to gauge John's sincerity, but all he encountered was an indifferent facade. The notion of killing Dumbledore was audacious, not just because of Grindelwald's potential disinterest, but also due to Dumbledore's formidable strength. "We need time to think about this," Wolfgang stated cautiously. John shrugged, letting the wine glass go. "Take your time to consider it," he said, standing up to leave. Wenda made a move as if to stop him, but John casually remarked, "Do you really want to start a fight here, in a gathering place of wizards?" Ignoring the wand still aimed at him, John walked out. Wenda ultimately did not act. Their status as wanted criminals meant they had to maintain a low profile, especially before Grindelwald's return. Any rash action would undoubtedly attract the attention of the French aurors, complicating their situation further and making it difficult to justify their actions to Grindelwald. Chapter 548, A New Beginning. John stood by the window, his fingers gently caressing his white wand. The scent of elm wafted in from outside, mingling with the sunlight that bathed his profile in a warm glow. He had found this house to rent at a reasonable price, and the landlord, a kind-hearted old lady who had been widowed 2 years prior, was raising her family alone. On the table lay 3 neatly arranged envelopes, each bearing the Ouroboros logo, crucial to John's plans. They needed to be sent to 3 different locations. "Credence will soon return from his tour," John mused, placing a mountain lily in a vase. Beside it, he set a gift box adorned with a ribbon, a custom-made dress meant as a farewell gift for Credence. With a flick of his fingers, the 3 letters vanished into his pocket. Perhaps it's time to find an old post office, he thought, picking up the gift box and making his way downstairs. There, he encountered Mrs. Shiraz, his silver-haired French landlord. "Dear, where are you off to?" she asked with a warm smile. John, appreciating her kindness and the reduced rent she offered him out of sympathy for his youth, replied with a respectful bow and a light smile. "I'm attending a grand banquet, Mrs. Shiraz." "A banquet? How lovely. I hope you enjoy yourself," she said, waving him off. "I believe I will. I've left you some presents as a token of my gratitude for your hospitality these past months," John said before bidding her farewell. Upon entering the house, Mrs. Shiraz discovered a stunning diamond necklace draped over the mountain lilies in the vase on the table. "You are a gentleman of the utmost elegance, Mr. Wick," she whispered to herself. Little did she know, this necklace would become her family's lifeline in the years to come. At the Ministry of Magic, the familiar dark ambiance set the tone. In the interrogation room, Newt Scamander was brought in by his brother, Theseus. The officials present exchanged knowing glances, aware that Theseus was protecting his brother. The hearing, proposed by Theseus, was about to begin. Torquil Travers, head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, announced, "The hearing begins." As a quill feverishly recorded their conversation, Travers opened Newt's file, revealing a wanted poster and a photo depicting the destruction in New York. "You wish to have your travel ban lifted?" Travers inquired. "Why?" Newt hesitated, then replied, "Because I enjoy traveling abroad." Spielman, another official, fixed his gaze on Newt, expecting a more substantial justification. The ministry was wary of individuals like Newt, who they believed could cause trouble. "For fieldwork," Newt clarified. "I'm gathering material for a book on magical creatures." Travers, unimpressed, remarked, "You caused significant destruction in New York. How do you explain that?" Newt, growing anxious, countered, "That accusation is based on two misunderstandings." "Newt," Theseus interjected softly, urging his brother to be cautious. Guzman, a dark-skinned wizard from the United States, intervened. "Mr. Scamander, we understand your frustration. In the spirit of compromise, we're willing to consider a proposal." Newt, wary but encouraged by Theseus's nod, listened intently, hoping for a resolution that would allow him to continue his work without further hindrance. "Which motion?" Travers resumed the conversation, stating, "The committee has agreed to lift your travel ban under one condition." Newt patiently awaited the stipulation. Spielman leaned in, a smile playing on his lips. "You must join the Ministry of Magic, specifically assigned to your brother's department." Theseus, with a slight upturn of his mouth, gave his brother a knowing look. "Thank you, but no," Newt replied with a forced smile. "I believe my talents lie elsewhere. Theseus is an auror, and my expertise does not align with that." He declined without hesitation, causing Theseus's expression to harden. "Mr. Scamander, the wizarding and non-magical worlds have coexisted peacefully for over a century." Zman, a national official who had suffered under Grindelwald's terror, interjected. "Grindelwald aims to shatter that peace. His ambitions are quite alluring to a certain segment of our community. Many pure-blood wizards are convinced of their inherent right to dominate, believing they are destined to rule not only our world, but also the non-magical one. They view Grindelwald as a hero," he continued, as Credence's reflection appeared in a puddle on the round table. "And Grindelwald sees this boy as key to his plans." "I'm sorry," Newt frowned, his smile reflecting disbelief at the absurdity of the statement. "You speak as if Credence is still alive." "He narrowly escaped, Newt," Theseus interjected, breaking his silence. Newt's gaze locked onto his brother's, a look of shock crossing his face. Theseus nodded, confirming the news. It reminded Newt of the figure he had seen slipping away in silence. "He is alive. After leaving New York a few months ago, he's been moving erratically across Europe. His exact whereabouts are unknown. But him." The image on the table shifted, revealing a blurry figure. "You want me to capture Credence? To kill him?" Newt questioned, immediately recalling the silent figure who had been conversing with Credence. "Still stubborn, Scamander," a voice from the shadows remarked. A man stepped forward, his face marred by scars and bearing a sinister expression. Grimson, a hired hunter known for dealing with rogue magical creatures that posed a threat to the Ministry of Magic. Newt's anger flared upon seeing him. To Newt, a protector of fantastic beasts, Grimson was nothing short of a cold-blooded killer. "You're too weak. I'll handle the tasks you're incapable of," Grimson sneered, casting a contemptuous glance at Credence's image. Unable to bear sharing the room with the executioner any longer, Newt stood and quickly exited. Travers revoked his application to leave the country. Theseus, after taking a deep breath and casting a glance at Grimson, who had taken Newt's place, skillfully followed his brother. The siblings reunited in the hallway. Newt clarified that he was not Grimson's type of hunter. Theseus shared his own challenges, explaining that this arrangement was the only way to mitigate their brother's alleged crimes. Given Newt's perceived alignment against the Ministry, his position was precarious. "The Ministry's machinations are no less vile than Grindelwald's. You must choose a side." "I refuse to choose," Newt declared vehemently. "Newt," Theseus said, looking into his eyes and opening his arms, "give me a hug." Newt didn't resist or pull away, allowing Theseus to embrace him. In a whisper, Theseus confided, "They're watching you." Faced with a choice between the Ministry of Magic and his younger brother, Theseus chose Newt without hesitation. As predicted, it wasn't long before Newt sensed he was being surveilled. With a swift whirlwind spell, he shook off his pursuer. In an alley in London, he noticed a glove hanging in the air. Peering through it, he saw a figure gesturing to him from the dome of St. Paul's Cathedral. The glove mimicked a handshake, and upon grasping it, Newt was instantly apparated to the dome. "Is the roof inconspicuous enough, Dumbledore?" Newt inquired, handing back the gloves. Dumbledore, at 45, bore graying auburn hair and a beard. He was no longer the impetuous youth, nor had he yet reached the twilight years of old age. At the pinnacle of his life, he possessed the serene and composed demeanor characteristic of British gentlemen. "I truly relish in appreciating the scenery," he mused, gazing down at the bustling crowd below. Positioned at a vantage point, he was remarkably conspicuous. With a graceful wave of his wand, Dumbledore invoked, "Let the clouds and mist enshroud us." Instantly, a gentle fog spread across London, veiling the area from any intrusive gazes. Chapter 49. Hello, Circus Newt and Dumbledore apparated back into the plaza. Amidst the lingering fog, Dumbledore inquired about the Ministry of Magic's stance. "They still suspect it was you who sent me to New York," Newt revealed. Dumbledore, with a knowing smile, asked, "And you told them it wasn't me?" "Yes, though we both know the truth," Newt replied, accepting Dumbledore's explanation before heading off to Egypt, setting off a chain of events. Dumbledore had explained his actions by mentioning the Dumbledore family's unique connection to magical birds, particularly the phoenix, which is said to come to their aid in desperate times. He recounted a tale of his great-grandfather's phoenix, which departed after his ancestor's death. "With all due respect, Professor, I doubt the story of the Thunderbirds is the real reason you're sharing this with me," Newt said, his tone indicating he was no longer the easily misled student from his school days. "What about the fire dragon? Was that your doing as well?" "Absolutely not," Dumbledore responded as they walked and talked. "A talking dragon was as much a surprise to me as to anyone." Suddenly aware they were being followed, Dumbledore swiftly grabbed Newt's arm, and with a twist of apparition, they vanished, only to reappear at Victoria bus station. "Credence is in Paris, Newt." Dumbledore shifted the topic away from the dragon. "He's searching for his true family. Have you heard any rumors about his real identity?" Newt, taken aback, admitted, "No, I haven't." Dumbledore then shared, "Pure-blood wizards believe he's the last descendant of a significant French family, the missing child." The mention of an important French family sparked an image of a raven crest in Newt's mind. "Lada's brother?" he guessed, referring to Lada Lestrange, a former classmate and crush who was now engaged to another. Newt's heart, however, belonged to someone else. "That's the speculation," Dumbledore confirmed, adding, "Regardless of his blood status, what I know is that he's grown in an environment devoid of love, much like dark twins seeing their host as their sole companion." Dumbledore then shared his personal connection to the matter, reflecting on his sister, Ariana, and the guilt and regret he harbored. "Credence is either in danger or poses a danger to others in Paris. While I'm unaware of his full backstory, it's imperative we find him." He expressed a desire to make amends for past mistakes and to thwart Grindelwald's plans. Handing Newt a business card for Nico Flamel, Dumbledore then disappeared with a pop of apparition. Newt, left behind, called out with one last question about a white-haired wizard, possibly linked to Credence and Grindelwald. Dumbledore, taken aback, admitted no recollection of such a person, pondering how different things might have been if he had. As Newt returned home, the urgency to travel to Paris grew. Meanwhile, in Paris, the circus had returned, with Credence now sporting a beard. Inside the monster tent, Nagini knelt beside a large box, caressing a circus costume, signaling it was time for her performance. Credence had seemingly abandoned any hope of being rescued by John and hurried towards Nagini. He whispered through the fence, "Nagini." "Nagini," she responded, turning to face him, their eyes meeting through the barrier. "I know where she is," Credence revealed. "We're escaping tonight." Before Nagini could respond, a portly wizard approached her tent and quickly interjected. "I told you to keep your distance from her, boy," he spat venomously. "Didn't I give you chores? Go clean Kaaba." With that, he drew the curtain, severing their conversation. Credence's gaze shifted upwards to the caged Charmander, contemplating the evening's grand circus show. The performance stage, essentially a large cage, was surrounded by an audience of inebriated individuals and wizards with a penchant for the peculiar. The corpulent wizard, Skander, took the stage with gusto. Ladies and gentlemen, in our unique showcase of monsters and oddities, allow me to present, he announced, pulling back the curtain to reveal Nagini in a snakeskin outfit. The sight of such a striking woman elicited whistles and lewd comments from the men in the crowd, their drunken jeers filled with crude insinuations. Among the audience, a white-haired wizard's eyes widened in surprise. Nagini? John murmured, leaning forward for a better view. However, Skander's derogatory introduction of Nagini as a blood-curse orc, trapped in the Indonesian jungle, transformed his surprise into a deep-seated rage. Such a lowly creature deserves to be displayed as a beast for all eternity, Skander bellowed. The term inferior creatures ignited a murderous intent in John's eyes, sending a palpable chill through the crowd, silencing even the most intoxicated hecklers. A tense silence enveloped the tent, filled with an ominous atmosphere. John inhaled deeply, his breath emitting golden flames that spread like smoke. A dark-skinned individual wearing a feathered hat took notice, as did another person who recognized the distinctive white hair. "It's him," Tina whispered to herself, recalling the white-haired wizard from the subway station. Having followed Credence to the circus, she immediately recognized John and began to push through the crowd towards him. Suddenly, the tent erupted in flames. "Fire!" someone screamed in terror. The unexpected blaze halted Credence's attempt to free the Charmander and prevented Nagini from transforming into a snake. The crowd descended into panic, scattering as the flames engulfed the tent, causing those touched by the fire to scream in agony. John fought the urge to incinerate those who had mocked Nagini, his dark aura dissipating as a pathway formed through the golden flames. The cage melted upon contact with the fire, and Credence shielded Nagini, both staring at the unfolding chaos. Then the flames parted, revealing John with a smile. "Credence, it seems I've arrived just in time," he said, his gaze softening as he turned to Nagini. "Hello, Nagini," he greeted her with a gentle voice, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. Chapter 550. Hello, Nagini. Credence's eyes widened in shock. "It's you." For months he had believed he was forsaken. John, with a nonchalant shrug and a light smile, responded, "I missed delivering some of the gifts I had ordered for you." Holding a gift box, he approached Credence, who eagerly accepted it and discovered a purple suit inside. "We should leave," John suggested, tilting his head as he sensed someone attempting to extinguish the fire outside. With a wave of his wand, the golden flames transformed into a fire tornado, engulfing the entire tent. Approaching Credence and Nagini, John extended his hand, his eyes warm and inviting. "Come with me, Nagini, Credence." Nagini felt an inexplicable trust towards those gentle eyes. Credence, still in disbelief, asked, "You didn't abandon me?" "I always keep my promises," John assured him. Credence, hesitantly at first, squeezed Nagini's hand before finally accepting John's. With a soft smile, John caused the golden flames to envelop them protectively. Outside, Tina appeared, attempting to douse the flames with her wand. However, she quickly realized that the fire was as relentless as fiendfire, turning everything it touched to ashes. Amidst the chaos, a malnourished Zulu, showing signs of abuse, escaped from its shattered cage. The house elves, driven out by the fire, were unharmed. Instead, the flames liberated all the magical creatures by burning their chains and cages. A hippogriff seized the opportunity to break free and soared out of the flames. Skander, bleeding and powerless, could only watch as his circus was consumed. Despite his orders, his staff was repelled by the fierce flames before they could get close. Eventually, the fire receded to a single point and vanished, leaving only Kaba in the bathtub. The unquenched flames etched the words "inferior wizard" into the ground, a sight that nearly caused Skander to faint. Tina, in a daze, approached Skander and inquired about his knowledge of the individuals associated with the blood-cursed child. "He's searching for his mother. We thought we could find a way home," Skander replied, his voice hollow from the shock. "It's him. He destroyed my circus." Overwhelmed, Skander fainted, and his staff hurriedly carried him away. Tina remained alone, watching the words on the ground fade, leaving a lasting impression of lesser wizards. Suddenly, a dark-skinned man appeared behind her, prompting Tina to react. In an abandoned building, the figures of 3 people materialized. John, frowning, looked at Credence with evident dissatisfaction. "This is the safe house you chose?" Credence meekly confirmed. "There's not even a proper bed here, just boxes. How do you expect Nagini to sleep?" John scolded. Nagini and Credence exchanged glances. "I don't need a bed," Nagini whispered. "You do," John insisted, refusing to accept any objections. With a wave of his wand, he transformed the boxes into a soft bed, followed by the conjuration of tables and chairs, as if performing a grand magic trick. "Is he the one you mentioned?" Nagini whispered to Credence. "Didn't you say he was cold?" "I don't know," Credence admitted, puzzled by John's unexpected kindness. "Maybe he's changed over the past few months. He's never treated his friends poorly." Feeling uneasy about this sudden benevolence, Credence shared, "We can start searching for her tomorrow. I found the person who sent me to Second Salem." "There's no rush," John replied, leaning against the window. "We have time." Suddenly, he wrinkled his nose in disgust. "You smell worse than a wet dog. Haven't you showered in days?" Credence, sniffing himself, asked doubtfully, "Is it that bad?" "Of course," John replied, approaching Credence. "Remember, you're here to find someone, not to beg. There's no need for apologies. Take a bath, shave, and refresh yourself. And," John glanced at Nagini, "this lady deserves a new dress, doesn't she, Credence?" Nagini and Credence locked eyes, an unexpected moment interrupted by a strand of white hair. John, with a hint of amusement, addressed Credence. "Don't you think it's improper to be around when ladies are bathing?" Confused, Credence began to object. "But there's no bath here." Before he could finish, John waved his wand, conjuring a bathtub out of thin air, followed by wooden boards that assembled into a privacy screen. Credence, taken aback by the sudden magic, felt it was Nagini who truly understood how to handle John's eccentricities. As dawn broke, Nagini awoke in a bed so soft it felt surreal. She marveled at the mattress. "It's like sleeping on clouds." John, appearing at the window, greeted her warmly. "Good morning, Nagini. How did you sleep?" Curious, Nagini asked, "Where's Credence?" "He's downstairs, shaving," John replied, climbing in through the window. "What would you like for breakfast?" Their conversation took a turn when Nagini, puzzled by their connection, inquired, "Do we know each other?" John paused, the weight of the question hanging in the air. "Do you really want to know?" he asked, his tone serious. Nagini nodded, sensing the gravity of his words. "There's a price," John cautioned, placing a skirt beside her. He sat down, looking intently into Nagini's eyes. "It's a significant price." Nagini hesitated, wondering if the cost was as dire as the actions taken the night before. John reassured her, "I promise, I won't harm you. I acted last night because they insulted you, and my friends should never be subjected to such treatment." His assurance was compelling, and Nagini felt a sense of trust. "I've always fought for those I care about," John confessed, "and I want you to remember, it's okay to smile." As they spoke, Credence, who had been eavesdropping, was caught by John's observant eyes. Embarrassed, Credence averted his gaze. "Isn't your true family right here?" John asked, hinting at the deep bond they shared. Credence, caught in a moment of reflection, didn't notice John's playful admonition not to peek as Nagini changed. Downstairs, the morning was alive with the chirping of birds. Credence, now dressed in a mauve outfit adorned with 3 embroidered stars, fed them diligently. Nagini joined him, her snakeskin attire replaced with a light blue skirt that gracefully highlighted her figure. John, watching them prepare to leave, handed Credence his wand. "I hope you find your family," he said, a hint of sadness in his voice. "Are you not coming with us?" Credence asked, a note of disappointment in his voice. John shook his head. "This journey is yours to take." He was cautious, aware of the potential consequences of his involvement. As Nagini and Credence departed, a figure emerged from the shadows. "Hand over your wand. You're quite bold, Joel," Grindelwald said, his voice deep and filled with a mix of nostalgia and threat. John, unfazed, smiled slyly. "Really, Gale, do you think you can intimidate me?" Grindelwald, taken aback by John's defiance and apparent youthfulness, inquired, "How have you managed to avoid aging, Joel?" "It's simply magic, Gale," John replied, his gaze shifting to Wolfgang, who had appeared nearby. "It seems you have other plans for Credence." John had anticipated Grindelwald's interest in Credence, understanding the Dark Wizard's intentions even before they were fully revealed. Chapter 551. Hello, Grindelwald. Are you saying you would kill Albus Dumbledore for me? Grindelwald inquired, his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze piercing and full of scrutiny. Of course, as long as the price is right, Gellert, John replied, meeting Grindelwald's intense gaze without flinching. You two were once very close, Grindelwald remarked as he stepped closer to John, who had grown taller and older. Observing John's youthful features, Grindelwald added, but for me, power always comes first. This is a transaction of equal value, John said, reaching lightly tapped up the blood-packed medallion that Grindelwald wore on his chest. He smiled faintly and added, You're incapable of doing it yourself, aren't you? Grindelwald glanced down at the blood-packed medallion and then back at John, studying him for a moment before smiling. I know you, John. You wouldn't go through with it. And what about you? Is the Elder Wand all you desire? Grindelwald's eyes bore into John's. Who are you, really? I'm merely a visitor, John replied. You're after Credence. Why? Surely you don't believe he can kill Dumbledore, John said mockingly, causing Wolfgang, who was observing quietly, to frown. Grindelwald, however, did not react with hostility, but chuckled instead. Why not? And you, what's your purpose in getting close to the boy? To kill Dumbledore, please, John scoffed. That would only happen if Dumbledore willingly offered his neck. I won't deny Credence's power, but a wizard's duel isn't solely about magical strength, John explained calmly. Skill and combat prowess are equally crucial. Whether it's a massive block of copper or a small bullet, the outcome is the same. They both kill. Lifting a block of copper requires strength, but firing a bullet only needs a slight pull of the trigger, John elaborated, locking eyes with Grindelwald. So tell me, why pursue this? Indeed, he couldn't defeat Dumbledore in a direct duel, Grindelwald admitted, but his potential. His potential? That's laughable, John sneered. How long do you think he'll survive? 3 years? 5? 10? Do you honestly believe he'll live long enough to challenge Dumbledore directly? John's tone grew serious. Stop speaking in riddles, Gellert. After a moment of silence, Grindelwald finally spoke. His lineage, you must have noticed the peculiar creature that accompanies him. A bird. Don't tell me he's Dumbledore's son, John said, taking a deep breath. Grindelwald remained silent, prompting John to look up and sigh. Why do you always target the unfortunate offspring of the Dumbledore family? This comment stirred unpleasant memories for Grindelwald, who then asked, In 1899, if I hadn't left, what would you have done? There's no answer to that. History is devoid of what-ifs, John said as he walked to the door and opened it. If you're not here to make a deal, then please leave. Grindelwald departed without another word. Wolfgang, surprised, asked, Aren't we going to act? No, he won't be our downfall, Grindelwald said as he stood outside, looking back at the building. He's merely a bystander. In that moment, Grindelwald realized much. Wolfgang, accustomed to his boss's enigmatic ways, knew better than to question him openly. I think we've seen enough, John, Grindelwald said as they walked away. Let's see if the boy can withstand the test. As the two figures vanished into the street, John watched from above. Dumbledore. He closed his eyes, pondering the question. Clearly, Albus Dumbledore would not have a son. If it were truly Dumbledore's son, Grindelwald would be attacking Hogwarts by now. That left only one possibility, the rest of the Dumbledore family. At this point in time, Dumbledore's father has long passed, leaving only one possibility. Aberforth, John concluded, opening his eyes. He hadn't encountered such a scenario at the Hogshead Inn. Have you figured it out, Grindelwald? John mused. Even knowing Grindelwald's intentions with Credence, he was powerless to intervene. Grindelwald had correctly surmised that John was not of this world, which emboldened him. Let's see how you accomplish your grand plan, John. Nagini, is this how you gradually transform into a snake? John pondered, piecing together the events that led to her transformation. Credence found himself in the crosshairs of Grindelwald's schemes, and Nagini, recalling her transformation into a snake, felt the weight of her lost love and the only family she had known. The source of their turmoil seemed to trace back to a child once abandoned by the Dumbledores. A dark aura emanated from John's eyes as he spoke with a chilling tone. You truly disgust me, Dumbledore. For the first time, his disdain for the headmaster was laid bare. Beneath Dumbledore's revered image was a man who had neglected his sister Ariana and now Credence. The love he professed seemed reserved only for Grindelwald, or perhaps the memory of a younger Grindelwald. Credence's quest for answers led him to Irma Dugard, the woman who had handed him over to Mary Lou Barebone. Upon their meeting, Credence was taken aback to learn that Irma, a half-elf, was not his mother but merely a servant. "I'm not your mother, just a servant," Irma said with a smile, looking him over. "You were such a beautiful baby, and now you've grown into a handsome young man. I've always missed you." Credence's heart raced, and the wand in his pocket emitted a faint glow. "Why? Why didn't they want me?" he asked, his voice laden with confusion and pain. Nagini, sensing Credence's turmoil, gripped his hand tightly, her own heart heavy with empathy. "Why is your name on the adoption papers?" Credence pressed, desperate for answers. Nagini, cursed to become a snake, felt a premonition of danger that ordinary people could not perceive. Unbeknownst to Credence and Irma, a hunter lay in wait, observing them like prey in the field. "I gave you to Lady Barebone because I believed she could provide for you," Irma explained. But before Credence could delve deeper, fate cruelly silenced him. Grimson, a hunter employed by the British Ministry of Magic, emerged from the shadows. A green light burst from his wand, and in the chaos that followed, Irma fell, and Credence vanished, leaving Nagini to scream in horror. Grimson, smug in his apparent victory, failed to notice the thick black smoke gathering above. It was Irma who had been struck down. Enraged, Credence unleashed his power, his form swooping down on Grimson. Despite Grimson's iron armor curse, which shielded him like a hemisphere, Credence's fury was unrelenting. However, just as Credence was about to strike, Grimson vanished with a smirk, leaving Credence to face the tragic scene before him. Holding the glowing wand, Credence was overcome with grief, his heart aching as Nagini embraced him, offering solace in his moment of despair. Meanwhile, Grimson, having completed his mission, awaited Grindelwald in a dark alley. The British Ministry of Magic's decision to employ him had played right into Grindelwald's hands, for Grimson was already his ally, all in the name of the greater good. Returning to their safe house, a place of refuge, Credence and Nagini found solace in John's presence. Without a word, John summoned the wand from Credence's pocket. "What happened to you?" he inquired, preparing a new potion with a flick of his wand, the cauldron bubbling to life. "Was it family or an enemy?" John asked, his tone casual yet filled with concern. "I almost discovered the truth," Credence replied, his voice barely above a whisper. John listened without judgment as Credence, curled up in a corner, recounted the day's harrowing events like a child seeking comfort from an adult. Nagini stayed by his side, her presence a constant source of comfort. Chapter 552, Hello, Hogwarts. John leaned back against the table, casting a glance at Credence. Observing his tears, John let out a sigh. "Credence," he called out gently. Credence slowly lifted his gaze. "Are you seeking family, or are you after the truth?" John posed the question, highlighting the dilemma. Credence found himself at a loss. The events of the day had brought him tantalizingly close to the truth, yet he remained conflicted. "If your family were to welcome you back only on the condition that you abandon Nagini," John stepped closer, locking eyes with Credence, "would you accept their terms?" "No, it can't be like that," Credence murmured, but John interjected softly. "Blood curse victims, just consider the term. They refuse to even acknowledge her as a witch." John explained how those afflicted by the blood curse were paraded alongside magical creatures in the circus, treated more like exhibits than beings. Credence found himself unable to argue, having known for months that John's words held truth. Family and Nagini. Credence's gaze shifted to Nagini, meeting her concerned look. He found himself at a crossroads of decision. John gave him space, curious to see if Credence's choice would warrant sympathy or assistance. Initially, their relationship was purely transactional, but John's perspective had shifted. He glanced at Nagini, aware of the hardships she would face in the future, and resolved not to let his friends live with regret. However, his support was contingent on Credence proving himself worthy. John mused on the nature of Slytherin loyalty, recognizing its selective generosity. He admitted to himself that he could never embody the selflessness of a Gryffindor, but he valued the Slytherin trait of fiercely protecting those close to them. As he waited for Credence's decision, John prepared for a lengthy deliberation. However, Credence's response came swiftly and without hesitation. "I choose Nagini," he declared firmly, yet added, "but I also can't abandon my quest to find my family. I need to understand why they left me. I'm seeking just an answer." His declaration was so forceful that even Nagini seemed taken aback. John smiled, offering Credence his wand. "In that case, from this moment forward, your magical power is mine to command." Credence accepted the wand, puzzled by the arrangement. John chose not to elaborate, instead focusing on enhancing Credence's magical output through psychic magic. This exertion left Credence drained. Nagini expressed concern, but John remained unfazed. He placed the re-energized wand into a cauldron, infusing it with magic until the concoction boiled and eventually solidified, leaving behind a single drop of colorless liquid. With a spell, John shattered the solid mass, leaving the liquid suspended in midair. He then directed it towards Credence, who winced as a bloodstain appeared on his hand. The blood was drawn towards John, transforming under the wand's influence. John mingled it with his own blood, creating a pendant where the mingled bloods in the potion orbited each other within an 8-shaped Ouroboros pendant, yet remained separate. John tossed the pendant to Credence, instructing, "Even in death, this must remain with you." Catching the pendant, Credence looked overwhelmed. John stated calmly, "Our deal is complete." "Are you leaving?" Credence asked, a hint of anxiety in his voice. "Not yet," John replied, causing a flicker of hope in Credence. However, John quickly tempered expectations. "There's no need to rush our departure." Disappointment washed over Credence. Clinging to a sliver of hope, he inquired, "Will we meet again?" "As I've said, Credence," John began, tidying the table with a flick of his wand, "the choice is yours." "I'm not strong enough," Credence realized, understanding the weight of John's words. His heart felt heavier than it had the day before, grappling with the complexities of his choices and the path ahead. John had vanished when I looked up again. Rumors were swirling that Credence belonged to the Las T lineage of an ancient French pure-blood family. This belief wasn't just held by the public. Even Dumbledore seemed to entertain the notion slightly. Travers, the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, led a team of Aurors on a mission to confront Dumbledore. In the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom, Dumbledore was in the midst of teaching. The room was arranged with an open space in the center, encircled by students who watched with keen interest. A tall boy in a Gryffindor robe, reminiscent of Cormac McLaggen, stood ready for a duel, facing none other than their teacher, Dumbledore. Despite the boy's confidence, he was up against a wizard of unparalleled skill, rivaled only by Grindelwald himself. The duel was brief. Dumbledore effortlessly sent the boy flying, landing him softly on a magically transformed sofa. The boy's bewildered and humorous expression elicited laughter from the entire class. Suddenly, the door swung open. Travers, accompanied by Theseus, Leda, and several Aurors, barged into the classroom. A female professor rebuked him for the intrusion, but Travers, already displeased with Hogwarts' autonomy and its acceptance of ministry funds, retorted, "I am the director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, and I have the authority to visit any location within my schools." He then ordered the students to leave. However, this was Dumbledore's domain, and the students remained seated until Dumbledore himself said, "Please, follow the professor outside." All complied, except for McLaggen, who defiantly told Travers, "He's the best teacher we've ever had." Dumbledore thanked McLaggen, who then reluctantly left after a sharp command from Travers. Travers, visibly intimidated yet trying to assert his authority, confronted Dumbledore. Despite his initial purpose, Travers's frustration was palpable. He cut to the chase. "Newt Scamander is in Paris." Dumbledore feigned confusion, which only irritated Travers further. "Stop pretending," Travers snapped, accusing Dumbledore of enabling Newt's actions. Dumbledore, unfazed, remarked on Newt's known aversion to following orders, further agitating Travers. Travers then mentioned the prediction of Tycho Donus, a prophecy rumored to involve the Obscurial and Grindelwald's interest in it. Dumbledore, maintaining his composed demeanor, acknowledged his awareness of the prophecy and the rumors surrounding it. Travers accused Dumbledore of protecting the Obscurial and indirectly aiding Grindelwald by forming an international network. Dumbledore, dropping his pretense, calmly asserted that their ultimate goal was to defeat Grindelwald and warned Travers that his methods of political suppression might inadvertently drive people into Grindelwald's arms. Travers, frustrated and dismissive of Dumbledore's warning, accused him of seeking power and undermining his authority, all while pretending ignorance of the chaos unfolding around them. Travers spoke with a blunt honesty that cut through the air. "Listen, I initially didn't want to bring this up because, frankly, I don't like you." His words were direct, leaving no room for misinterpretation. The tension in the room thickened as those around him processed his candid admission. Travers, however, remained unfazed by the discomfort he had stirred. He stood firmly, his gaze steady and unyielding, as if challenging anyone to question his stance. Despite his personal feelings, Travers had recognized the importance of addressing the matter at hand. It was a testament to his professionalism and the seriousness with which he approached the situation. His willingness to set aside personal grievances for the greater good did not go unnoticed, though it did little to soften the blunt impact of his words. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of respect, apprehension, and a hint of curiosity about what Travers would reveal next. It was clear that, despite his aversion, he was prepared to engage in a necessary dialogue, driven by a sense of duty that transcended personal dislikes. Chapter 553. Hello, Messenger. But you are the only wizard who can match him, and I want you to fight him. Didn't you say our goals are the same? Well then, confront Grindelwald, and let's see if you truly are the man you claim to be. Travers stared at Dumbledore with a challenging gaze, echoed by the intense scrutiny of the surrounding aurors. Under the weight of their collective gaze, Dumbledore slowly shook his head, his voice heavy with a mix of resignation and sorrow. "I can't." Travers almost laughed in disbelief. "You claim that all your actions are aimed at confronting Grindelwald, yet when presented with the opportunity, you refuse. Are these forces you've amassed not intended for rebellion, then? Your arrogance is astounding. You refuse even to prove yourself, and yet you expect me to believe in your cause?" With a flick of his wand, Travers conjured a dynamic photograph of a young Dumbledore and a young Grindelwald, capturing the attention of everyone present, including Theseus. The two figures in the photo stared at each other with an intensity that spoke volumes. "You and Grindelwald were like brothers," Travers stated, his voice laced with accusation. Dumbledore's gaze lingered on the image, his voice tinged with a deep, unspoken regret. "We were more than brothers." His words were heavy, evoking a sense of a painful past, intertwined with moments of bitter sweetness. The photograph stirred memories of his sister, filling him with regret and a longing for a time when he felt truly understood. "Are you willing to fight him?" Travers pressed, his question hanging in the air like an ultimatum. Pain flickered in Dumbledore's eyes as he responded, his voice barely above a whisper. "I can't do it." Disappointment etched on his face. Travers made his stance clear. "Then you have chosen your side." With another wave of his wand, he conjured a metal bracelet around Dumbledore's wrist, a warning ring. From that moment on, every spell cast by Dumbledore would be monitored by the Ministry of Magic, and the surveillance on him would be doubled. Travers stormed off in anger, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Theseus, still processing the revelation that his former teacher and Grindelwald shared a bond deeper than brotherhood, found himself stopped by Dumbledore. "If Grindelwald calls a meeting, do not interfere," Dumbledore implored with sincerity. "Do not let Travers send you if you still hold any trust in me." Travers, overhearing the exchange, couldn't contain his frustration. "Theseus," he exclaimed, incredulous at the audacity. "Do you take people for fools, winning over my men the moment I turn my back?" Theseus's expression was a complex mix of emotions. What bond could possibly be closer than that of brothers? He wondered aloud, struggling to comprehend a relationship that transcended the bond he knew so well. Meanwhile, Leda Lestrange found herself wandering the halls of Hogwarts, a place teeming with memories of her school days. She paused in front of the auditorium, her gaze lifting to the floating candles, a timeless sight. As she continued her walk, she arrived at a classroom that held a mix of painful and precious memories. Here she had been ostracized, the subject of cruel whispers and distrustful glances, all because of her family name. Only Newt had offered her moments of kindness, a Slytherin snake and a caring badger finding solace in each other. Lost in thought, she was startled by a familiar voice. "Hi, Leta," Dumbledore greeted, his appearance unexpected. "What a surprise!" Leta's response was cool, tinged with bitterness. "Because you saw me in the classroom? Was I such a terrible student?" Dumbledore's smile was gentle, his tone reassuring. "On the contrary, you were one of my brightest students." "I meant bad, not stupid," Leta retorted, her self-deprecation evident. "But don't trouble yourself with a response. You never cared for me." "You're mistaken," Dumbledore countered, his frown betraying his concern. "I never saw you as bad." Leta's skepticism was palpable. And you truly are different. Others see me as bad, and they're not wrong. I am evil." Dumbledore regarded his former student with a compassionate gaze. "I understand that the rumors about your brother Corvus cause you great pain." "No, you don't understand," Leta replied, her voice cold yet mocking the pretense of empathy. "Not unless your brother is also dead." Dumbledore paused, the mention of his brother stirring deep emotions. "It was my sister who died," he corrected softly. Leta stared at him, her surprise evident, as layers of misunderstanding and shared grief began to unravel between them. The air was thick with a mix of hostility and curiosity as Rita and Dumbledore faced each other. Rita's voice softened slightly. "Do you love her?" Dumbledore's face was a canvas of regret and sorrow as he approached Rita. "My only regret is not loving enough," he confessed, his gaze locked with hers. "It's never too late to let go. Confession brings relief." Rita, however, found no comfort in his words, sensing only a defensive tone. "I've lived with regret my entire life. Don't let it consume you," Dumbledore implored with patience. Without a word, Rita turned and left, leaving Dumbledore alone with his thoughts, staring silently at the old table. As evening approached, John found himself running errands at the post office. "Sir, I need to double-check," the messenger said, disbelief coloring his tone. "These letters are to be sent in 1997? Sending letters 70 years into the future was unheard of, a request so bizarre the post office had never encountered anything like it. John placed a gold coin on the counter, undeterred by the messenger's skepticism. "It's not about the money," the messenger protested, only to be met with another gold coin. With each coin placed on the counter, the messenger's protests weakened until, at the sight of a bag filled with gold and diamonds, he capitulated. "I'll get the date tattooed on my body if I must. Even in death, I'll ensure these are delivered," he declared, a newfound sense of duty in his voice. John nodded, satisfied, and leaned in to whisper a stern warning. "Ensure these letters reach their destination. Should you fail, the price will be your life." The messenger, taken aback, attempted a nervous joke, only to be met with John's serious gaze. Committing himself to the task, the messenger placed the letters in a sealed box and stored it away, a constant reminder of his solemn promise. John, confident in the messenger's commitment, stepped outside, his thoughts turning to Grindelwald as he noticed the black curtains fluttering in Paris. "What do you want?" Credence asked Grindelwald, his voice laced with caution. "I want nothing from you," Grindelwald replied, sitting casually on the roof without his wand. "But I can offer you something I never had." His gaze fixed on Credence, he continued, "the answer to who you are." Intrigued, Credence listened as Grindelwald offered him a clue to his identity, directing him to Père Lachaise Cemetery for the truth. With a bow, Grindelwald disappeared, leaving Credence holding a map and contemplating his next move. John's voice broke the silence. "It seems you've found a lead." Surprised, Credence turned to find John behind him, seeking advice on what to do next. John, joining them on the roof, glanced at the map and advised, "Follow your heart, Credence." "Will you accompany us?" Credence inquired, looking for reassurance in his uncertain quest for identity. John looked at Credence with a mixture of sadness and resolve. "No, I'm here to say goodbye," he said, shaking his head gently. "It's time for me to go, Credence." He offered a slight nod towards the two of them, his voice carrying a weight of finality. "I hope you can find your way, as you wish. This time, I need to leave for a much longer period." "Wait, no," Credence exclaimed, reaching out with his arms in a desperate attempt to hold on to the moment. But it was too late. John's figure had already started to fade into the ether, disappearing from sight, leaving Cretidea, Nance grappling with the sudden emptiness of his departure. Chapter 554. Hello, Lestrange. John departs, yet he doesn't entirely leave the scene. Perched atop the Eiffel Tower, he gazes down at Credence, who kneels on the ground below. Though his actions may seem harsh, John believes they are necessary to preserve the future as much as possible. His attention is diverted as his eyes, shifting into vertical pupils, zoom in on a dark figure below. Is that Newt? He muses, spotting Newt and Tina together. John is taken aback. Given the penchant for danger, are you sure you belong to Hufflepuff? The wind tussles John's hair, prompting him to absent-mindedly play with a strand. Seems like I haven't showered in a while, he remarks to himself. His solitude is interrupted by Wolfgang, who stands tall on the opposite side of the tower. So, Grindelwald sent you to spy on me? John inquires, turning to face him. Wolfgang, with a wand in hand, responds coolly, He mentioned you're a danger. You refrained from casting a spell on me because you're confident then? John asks with a light smile. Perhaps, Wolfgang replies, leaning against the tower. As long as you stay here, we're not enemies. Really? It's rather chilly up here, don't you think? John comments, rubbing his hands together for warmth. Wolfgang remains silent, committed to his mission from Grindelwald. John looks up, noting, It's going to rain soon. Standing so high on a rainy day is hardly wise. Thermord, John observes. Wolfgang looks up just as the sky darkens and a strong gust of wind sends his hat flying. John, with a half-smile, warns, Be careful of thunder. With a flick of his wand, a thunderous boom echoes as lightning strikes the Eiffel Tower. Meanwhile, Jacob hurries through a cemetery in France, having arrived with Newt. After Newt and Tina head to the Ministry of Magic, Jacob, unable to wait after seeing Queenie's image in Nicole Flamel's prophecy ball, ventures out alone. Startled by the thunder, he mutters about the impending rain. Approaching the Lestrange mausoleum, marked by the Raven family crest, he calls out softly, Queenie? Unaware that Flamel's prophecy ball can see the future, Jacob receives no response and presses on. Entering a shadowy space filled with sarcophagi, he spots a lone lamp. Queenie, dear, he calls again, only to be startled by someone behind him. Turning sharply, he finds a wand pointed at his cheek. Do not move. Easy there, buddy, Jacob says, turning slowly to face Yusuf Kama, who had previously kidnapped Tina. Yusuf, now free of the parasites thanks to Newt's help, takes Jacob hostage and leads him deeper into the shadows. Moments later, Credence and Nagini arrive, guided to the Lestrange tomb. Inside the ornate catacombs, statues of the Lestrange ancestors rest in peace. Credence is captivated, hoping to find answers to his troubled past. Suddenly, Nagini, sensing danger, transforms into a snake and hisses at a lurking figure. Yusuf, hidden in the shadows, aims his wand at Credence, bound by an oath to kill the most beloved of the Lestrange, who stole his mother. As Nagini blocks his aim, Yusuf shouts in frustration, Then I must kill you first, before Kobos. At that moment, others who had escaped from the Ministry of Magic arrive. Rita, having met Newt at the Ministry, rushes in just as Newt and Tina are calming the Zowu. Seeing Yusuf poised to attack, she cries out, Stop! Yusuf, hearing her, turns to look. As if witnessing a ghost from his past, he saw her, Rita, his half-sister, whose resemblance to their mother was uncanny. Is it really you, my little sister? Newt and Tina, having entered the scene, also noticed the unfolding drama. Credence, caught in the midst of this revelation, found himself grappling with his own identity crisis. He's your brother? Then who am I? Despite his choice to be with Nagini, the longing to understand his origins lingered. Rita, observing the boy who had been mistakenly identified as the last of the Lestrange bloodline, expressed her sympathy with a shake of her head. I don't know. I'm tired of being nameless, without a family history, Credence declared, moving towards Yusuf with determination. Tell me where I come from, then you can resolve this mystery. No, Credence, Nagini, reverting to her human form, intervened, her voice laden with earnestness. Have you forgotten what he told you? Credence hesitated, prompting Yusuf to lower his wand as well. Your origin is our shared past, Yusuf explained, his gaze shifting to Rita. Our destinies are intertwined. This tale wove together the fates of two families, the Karmas and the Lestranges, spanning 2 generations and centered around one woman. It delved into the long-standing feud between Mustafa Karma and Corvus Lestrange, ignited by their mutual love for Lorena, the mother of Yusuf and Leda. The narrative unraveled the layers of hatred stemming from love lost and a mother's death, culminating in Yusuf's father compelling him to swear an unbreakable vow of vengeance. The unveiling of the family tree by Leda exposed the dark underbelly of the Lestrange lineage, where women were reduced to mere floral symbols, and only the men were acknowledged. Yusuf's quest for revenge hit a dead end when Leda revealed that Corvus Lestrange had perished as a child in a tragic shipwreck, a disaster inadvertently caused by young Rita's decision to swap the infant Corvus with another baby. The ensuing storm claimed the lives of all aboard, including the substituted child, marking the end of Corvus Lestrange's lineage with an orchid that withered away on the family tree. Credence, confronted with the bleak outcome of his search for identity, was left profoundly disheartened. Tina, seeking clarity, asked Rita, "Did you know Credence's true identity when you switched the baby?" Rita's apologetic gaze met Credence's as she replied, "I didn't know." Distraught, Credence found solace in Nagini's comforting presence. Suddenly, a hidden passage within the mausoleum wall revealed itself, drawing the attention of everyone present. Jacob, spotting Queenie, dashed down the newly exposed staircase, followed closely by Newt, Tina, and Leda, with Yusuf trailing behind. "Let's go down," Credence urged, his quest for answers about his past propelling him forward, with Nagini by his side. Beneath the mausoleum lay an expansive underground amphitheater, teeming with thousands of wizards and witches. The air was charged with the presence of pure-blood supremacists, a testament to Grindelwald's far-reaching influence. Nagini, sensing the imminent danger, urged Credence to leave, but he was determined to stay, compelling her to remain by his side despite her fears. Jacob's reunion with Queenie was overshadowed by her newfound allegiance to Grindelwald, leaving him in turmoil. Tina, with her auror instincts, and Newt, with his keen understanding, both recognized the gathering as a trap. Surrounded by Grindelwald's followers, they found themselves ensnared. As the lights dimmed and the crowd's anticipation reached its peak, Grindelwald made his grand entrance, marking the beginning of a pivotal moment in the saga of the Lestrange Mausoleum. A shadowy figure emerged from the darkness. "Do you intend to let others restrain me?" John surveyed his surroundings, his gaze settling on a familiar face. "Lestrange," he muttered under his breath. He had been here earlier, yet had ostensibly departed, choosing not to reveal himself until now. John had been on edge, ready to intervene as Yusuf Kama poised to strike Nagini. Thankfully, he realized, intervention on his part was unnecessary. The chaos that had erupted was significant, and John found it hard to believe that the influential Lestrange family had not played a role in it. "The Lestranges are a thorn in the side, regardless of the era," he mused, his expression darkening with annoyance. With a sense of resolve, he ascended the steps. John's presence in the midst of the turmoil was no accident. He understood the weight of the Lestrange family's influence and their penchant for being at the heart of trouble. As he moved forward, his mind raced with thoughts of hope to navigate the complexities that lay ahead. The Lestranges, with their notorious reputation, were not to be underestimated. John knew that dealing with them required a blend of caution and decisiveness. The unfolding events were a testament to the tangled web of alliances and enmities that define the magical world. As he stepped higher, John prepared himself for whatever challenges awaited, determined to confront the Lestrange menace head-on. Chapter 555, Greetings, Gas Stove. As John walked by, his hair gradually darkened to black, making him less conspicuous in the crowd. Some individuals naturally draw attention, but today, all eyes were on another figure, Grindelwald. As he stepped onto the stage, the air buzzed with the excitement of thousands of wizards, their cheers thunderous. To some, Grindelwald was more than a leader. He was a savior, a supreme embodiment of wizarding prowess. He commanded the stage with the charisma of a rock star, the crowd hanging on his every gesture. With a simple motion, Grindelwald silenced the crowd. "My brothers, my sisters, my friends," he began, pacing the stage with a confident stride. "I shouldn't be the one receiving your applause." He paused, locking eyes with his audience. "It should be you." Queenie was captivated by his words, while Jacob, seated beside her, felt a growing unease at the talk of ruling over muggles like himself. Yusuf Kama watched with suspicion, Credence was mesmerized, and Nagini held him tighter. Rita Skeeter, amidst the crowd, found herself drawn to Grindelwald's magnetic presence, though she refrained from clapping. Unbeknownst to her, a young wizard with newly blackened hair observed the scene with a critical eye. "You are here because you seek change, a departure from the old and corrupt," Grindelwald continued, his voice rich with conviction. "They accuse me of hating non-wizards, but that's not true." His denial quieted the crowd's earlier jeers. "I don't fight out of hatred. Muggles are not inferior, just different. They have their own value, deserving of special consideration." His words struck a chord, especially with Queenie, who lived in a world where wizards were forbidden to marry muggles. Magic is rare, a gift for those who pursue noble causes. Imagine the world we could create, founded on freedom, truth, and more love. His gaze met Queenie's, his voice softening to deliver the message she longed to hear. Rita, momentarily lost in Grindelwald's envisioned world, was brought back to reality by a sarcastic remark from John. "Aurors are here," he muttered, his tone laced with irony, a stark contrast to the adulation surrounding them. Grindelwald then announced a prophecy, claiming dire consequences if wizards did not reclaim their rightful place. As he presented his vision, exhaling a vibrant mist that formed into images, John couldn't help but note the similarity to his own abilities. "Isn't this just a poor imitation of my work?" he thought, amused by the audacity. The spectacle before them was a testament to Grindelwald's influence, yet John's skepticism hinted at a deeper understanding of the true stakes at play. As the Aurors approached, the tension in the air hinted at the impending clash between Grindelwald's ideals and those who sought to stop him. Boots pounded the ground in unison, their strides echoing amidst the chaos. An explosion shattered the silence, a horrific display of Muggle power in the form of a nuclear blast that illuminated the amphitheater with a blinding light. The sheer terror of this power, something magic could not replicate, sent a chilling message. Witnessing this scene, Jacob whispered to himself, "There can be no more wars." Only those who have witnessed the horrors of war firsthand could understand the depth of his sentiment. It was a cruelty he never wished to experience again. The purebloods, once haughty, now screamed and murmured in terror as the vision faded. Their eyes, filled with a newfound fanaticism, turned towards Grindelwald, seeing him as their savior from the impending doom. "That's what we're fighting against. Their arrogance, their greed for power, their brutality." Grindelwald's voice rose above the murmurs, capturing everyone's attention. "How long before they turn their weapons on us?" he questioned, skillfully mobilizing the anti-Muggle sentiment. With the Auror's arrival, Grindelwald was poised to make his final move. Amidst the growing anxiety and anticipation, he spoke in a gentle tone, preparing his followers for what was to come. "There's an Auror among us," he announced, pointing out Theseus, who had led the Aurors in. Hostility filled the air, exactly what Grindelwald had intended. "Come closer, wizard brothers, join us," he proclaimed, inviting the Aurors to their side, only to be met with jeers and boos. The Aurors, now in a precarious position, had no choice but to step forward, exposed to the crowd's scorn. "What's the use of this Auror coming here?" John muttered, skeptical of the Auror's ability to deter the wizards, especially those incited by Grindelwald. The wizards were in high spirits, unlikely to be swayed by a single Auror's presence. Rita, standing beside John, worried for her fiancé, the leader of the Auror group. "It's time to go. I don't want Nagini to be involved," she said, her voice filled with concern. John was about to respond when Lita, unable to contain her anxiety, questioned, "How can you be sure you'll succeed?" It was clear that if Grindelwald hadn't intended to escalate the conflict, he wouldn't have called out the Aurors. As Grindelwald recounted his ordeal in New York, a red-haired witch, overcome by emotion, raised her wand. It wasn't a curse from Grindelwald's followers, but a spontaneous reaction. The target, an Auror mourning a fallen friend, reacted instinctively with a deadly spell. No! Grindelwald's shout to stop came too late. A green light flashed, and the witch fell, her life extinguished. As screams erupted, Grindelwald approached the fallen witch, his tone filled with sorrow. "Send this young warrior back to her family." While he played the part of the grieving leader, he failed to notice a small detail beneath his shoe. With his objective achieved, Grindelwald stood tall, announcing, "Apparat, go. Let's spread the message. were not the ones seeking violence. From that moment, Grindelwald aimed to portray himself as the victim to all of Europe, casting the Aurors and the Ministry of Magic as the true villains, capable of killing their own. Hearing his words, the pureblood wizards used apparition to disperse, leaving only Grindelwald and his closest followers in the amphitheater. Theseus, used as a pawn in Grindelwald's game, was furious. "Arrest him," he ordered through clenched teeth. Grindelwald, facing the approaching Aurors, drew his wand and cast a protective ring of blue flames around the stage, sealing the exits. His followers stepped into the enclosure, unharmed by the flames. A wizard, hesitating at first, bravely attempted to cross the flames but was instantly reduced to ashes. "Aurors, join me through the flames and swear an unbreakable oath or face your demise," Grindelwald declared, his voice echoing with a chilling finality. In the midst of chaos, a voice pierced through, clear and compelling. Only here can you truly grasp the essence of freedom, and only here can you embark on the journey of self-discovery. As the Aurors attempted to apparate away in a desperate bid for safety, they found themselves ensnared by a formidable wall of fire, their escape efforts futile as the flames consumed them mercilessly. The crowd thinned, casualties of the conflict, or those wise enough to flee while they could. Amidst the dwindling numbers, John, who had until now managed to remain unobtrusive, found himself standing out more than he would have liked. He observed the scene unfolding before him with a mix of horror and fascination. "What a colossal inferno," he remarked to himself, unable to tear his gaze away from the spectacle of power and destruction. Grindelwald, the orchestrator of the chaos, his presence commanding and his gaze piercing, took notice of John's undivided attention. A slight, intrigued smile played on his lips as he addressed him. "And what about you, my friend? Do you stand before me as an adversary?" John, caught in the moment, realized the gravity of the situation. Grindelwald, a figure of immense power and influence, was not someone to be taken lightly. His question was not merely conversational. It was a crossroads, offering John a choice that could alter the course of his life. The air was thick with tension, the aftermath of the battle serving as a grim backdrop to their exchange. John weighed his words carefully, understanding that his response could either mark him as a target or a potential ally in Grindelwald's eyes. The significance of this encounter was not lost on him. It was a pivotal moment that could define his stance in the ongoing struggle between freedom and control, between understanding oneself and being consumed by the flames of conflict. Chapter 556. Farewell. May you find peace this time. Grindelwald's declaration captured everyone's attention, directing it towards the figure who remained stoically indifferent even as death loomed. His hair, once black, gradually returned to its natural white. John sat calmly, facing the encroaching flames without a hint of fear. After observing the flames for a moment, he commented with genuine curiosity, "Impressive spell." "Fire shield," Grindelwald responded, locking eyes with John across the blaze. A smile played on his lips. "I'm willing to share it with you." "That's quite the honor," John replied with a slight smile, his gaze shifting to the wand in Grindelwald's grasp. "The Elder Wand, I presume?" "Yes, I suppose I'll be taking the lead," Grindelwald said, caressing his wand. "Since there's no turning back for you, why not join me?" His gaze then shifted to Credence, who was visibly eager. "He wishes for it as well." "I have no objections," John acknowledged, noticing Credence's anticipation. "You may proceed with your endeavors, but on one condition: do not harm the innocent." "Still as noble as ever," Grindelwald remarked with a smile. "Are you so sure he won't succumb to me?" "Don't deceive him, Grindelwald," John warned, his stare piercing. "You know him well." Grindelwald remained silent. Meanwhile, Newt spotted the white-haired wizard and was determined to prevent Credence from siding with Grindelwald. Nagini felt the same, but Credence took her hand, promising, "Wait for me. I'll return once I've uncovered my past." "Credence!" Despite his plea, Credence stepped through the flames, leaving Grindelwald with a triumphant smile. As the flames surged, the Aurors were forced to retreat. On the other side, Queenie prepared to cross the flames, but Jacob, knowing the horrors of war all too well, tried to stop her. "Jacob, he's the answer. He wants what we want," Queenie insisted. "No, Queenie, don't do this," Jacob pleaded in agony. "Come with me," she urged, attempting to lead Jacob with her. Honey, don't go. Jacob's eyes brimmed with tears. You're crazy, he said, but Queenie stepped into the flames regardless. No, Queenie, don't go, Jacob cried out as Queenie vanished with a pop. The blue flames spread wildly, engulfing everything in their path. Grindelwald gently embraced Credence, whispering, This is all for you. I just want to understand my past, Credence said, looking back at John, who remained calm outside the flames, clutching the pendant. Grindelwald's smile was enigmatic, confident in his charm's power to sway anyone. The elder wand in his hand became his conductor's baton, the fire his orchestra, and death the notes of his symphony. The blue flames thwarted the Aurors' attempts to apparate, causing panic among them. Several Aurors, in a desperate bid, ran towards Grindelwald through the flames, only to be met with a massacre, a display of power meant to intimidate. John, untouched by the flames, stood as the sole spectator amidst this dirge of death. Mr. Scamander, do you think Dumbledore will mourn for you? Grindelwald taunted, focusing on the Scamander brothers. Help them, Tina implored John from the audience. John shrugged. Sorry, Tina, they can handle it themselves. Do you know me? Tina asked, taken aback by his familiarity. John's slip of the tongue revealed a connection, her voice striking a chord within him. In a bid to protect the Scamanders, Lita feigned allegiance to Grindelwald, who welcomed her personally. Yet her resolve was clear as she faced the Scamanders, declaring, I love you. The ambiguity of her love left no answers, embodying the complexity of her feelings, a student's redemption, and a fiancé's care. As a Slytherin, her ambition was not her failing. Lita targeted the skeleton in Venda's grasp with a spell, causing an explosion that knocked Venda down. However, the blue flame spiraled out of control, engulfing Lita. John watched indifferently as Theseus, in a frenzy, attempted to breach the flames, narrowly escaping consumption. John closed his eyes slowly, the wails of the doomed echoing in his ears. I should leave, Grindelwald announced to John, his tone laced with disdain. This place has become chaotic beyond my control. With that, he took Credence and, casting one final look of disgust, vanished into the night, leaving behind a scene of devastation and unanswered questions. I hate Paris, they muttered before disappearing with a pop, leaving chaos in their wake. John rose to his feet, his form flickering as he reappeared beside Nagini. Just as Nagini reached for the blue flame, a golden light repelled it. Wrapping an arm around Nagini's shoulders, John whispered, He'll see you again. Tears welled in Nagini's eyes as he glared at John, confusion and anger mingling in his gaze. Who are you? He demanded. My name is John, came the soft reply. John Wick. Remember me, Nagini. John's voice was low, filled with a solemn promise. I must leave now, but this secret will stay with you, hidden deep within your soul. Never forget. With a tenderness that belied the situation, John gently wiped away the tears from Nagini's eyes before vanishing. Nagini was left to grapple with a profound sense of loss, a pain that would not ease until a brash young wizard stumbled into Albania, offering a chance at redemption. In John, Nagini sensed a man of contradictions, indifferent to death, yet visibly pained by farewells. As Grindelwald's flames grew wild, John shielded Nagini and even managed to save an unsuspecting muggle. The chaos spread to Père Lachaise Cemetery, threatening to engulf everything. Newt, Theseus, and others barely escaped as the flames pursued them, transforming into a monstrous dragon intent on destruction. Next, it's your turn, Professor, John murmured as the monster rampaged. The arrival of an elderly wizard, Nicole Flamel, brought a glimmer of hope. Flamel instructed everyone to form a circle and channel their magic into the ground to counter the spell. But when their efforts failed, leaving them reeling, John was stunned. This wasn't how things were supposed to unfold. Son, we need more strength, Flamel's voice reached him, filled with wisdom and a hint of mischief. Use what you excel at. But how? John protested, only to be met with a knowing wink. Sometimes you must act on impulse to truly wield the power you possess. Acknowledging his mentor's advice, John prepared to confront the dragon. Tina, watching from a distance, couldn't grasp their exchange but sensed the white-haired wizard's significance. Please, save us, she implored. John, momentarily distracted, complimented Tina on her unique eyes before drawing his wand. Despite Newt's skepticism, John faced the flames with a smile. Have you forgotten who commands fire? He teased. As golden flames enveloped him, John turned to Nagini with a gentle expression. "May you find peace this time," he whispered. With a determined gesture, he summoned a powerful magic, ready to face the inferno head-on, his resolve unwavering in the face of impending doom. A shockwave tore through the sky, heralding the arrival of a sword ablaze with eternal fire. Its light bloomed as dazzling as the sun, rendering it impossible to gaze upon directly. John beheld the sword, a sense of accomplishment swelling within him. He could feel the call of his friend resonating deep within his soul. With his wand clutched in his left hand and the sword in his right, John whispered a declaration that was barely audible. "I am a fire dragon." As he spoke, flames enveloped his body, not with destruction, but with a power that was both ancient and raw. The golden fire dragon, born of the eternal flame, clashed with the engulfing blue flames. The collision of gold against the azure created an ultimate white light, a fusion so intense that it filled the onlookers' ears with a ringing that seemed to come from another world. The blinding white light rendered them sightless, a testament to the power unleashed. When the terrifying brilliance finally faded, the Père Lachaise cemetery, once a scene of chaotic elemental fury, bore no trace of the gold and blue inferno that had raged through it. The aftermath was a silent testament to the fierce battle that had taken place, a battle between forces so powerful that their clash had transcended the visual spectrum, leaving behind a piece that was almost eerie in its completeness. Chapter 557, 1997, a collection by Mr. Wick. A week had passed since Watson Wick returned from Hogwarts. The thrilling battles and the exhilarating experience of flying on a dragon had invigorated the heart of this man, who was edging closer to middle age. His wife, Mrs. Wick, however, harbored some reservations about his adventurous spirit. "Have you ever considered riding Kiki to work?" Watson, with his arms wrapped around his wife's slender waist, whispered his mischievous suggestion into her ear, blatantly ignoring the disapproving look she gave him. That would be quite the spectacle, Watson mused to himself, pondering the speed at which Kiki could fly. Despite Mrs. Wick's evident disapproval, she ensured Watson enjoyed a restful night's sleep, akin to that of a contented baby. The following morning, he awoke feeling rejuvenated. Mrs. Wick was in the midst of brewing a magical tea, a gift from their son's classmate. Watson, having met the girl, was convinced of her interest in their son. "John seems to be quite popular. Is he being pursued by many?" Watson asked, showcasing the open-mindedness typical of a Western parent. After all, their son was nearly 17, an age where having a girlfriend was perfectly normal. Mrs. Wick examined the letter from the girl, noting the meticulous care taken in crafting each word, with no signs of haste or smudging. "There's a messenger outside," Watson remarked, spotting a letter being dropped into their mailbox. He retrieved it and returned to the breakfast table just as their son, John, descended the stairs. Setting aside the envelope for the moment, Watson shared with John, albeit with a hint of regret, "I've arranged for 20 men armed with Chicago typewriters, 3 Gatlings, and even acquired a tank to be stationed at the school gate." He casually took a bite of his slightly dry bread, washing it down with milk, and added, "There's also an armed helicopter, borrowed from a friend in Mahjong country, yet to be utilized." John regarded his father with a silent skepticism. "Setting aside the improbable arrival of the helicopter, where exactly did you acquire a tank?" Clearly, John had his doubts about the origins of Watson's acquisitions. "There's an American immigrant named Yuri Orlov, known as the King of War. There's nothing he can't procure," Watson explained, balancing the bread in one hand and the mysterious envelope in the other. Glancing at the envelope, he noticed an 8 Ouroboros pattern, which puzzled him. Among his acquaintances, none used such a symbol. John, sitting across from Watson, expressed his surprise. "I thought you ran a hotel?" It was evident that John was unaware of the full extent of his father's business endeavors. Watson, a shrewd businessman, understood the necessity of maintaining order, whether dealing with underground bosses or shadowy investors. To conduct business effectively, one must see it through to the end, Watson mused. His involvement brought a semblance of order to what would otherwise be chaos, a development welcomed by officials. Thus, securing approvals for his hotel and other ventures was a smooth process, with occasional minor hiccups serving as leverage for future negotiations. The hotel requires certain security measures, Watson stated, though his plans extended far beyond mere security. He had established a legal mercenary company and a security firm, primarily staffed by military veterans. This strategy not only provided employment and pensions for retired soldiers, but also curried favor with the military. Reflecting on the hotel he had long envisioned, Watson remarked with a sense of wonder, "Magic truly is remarkable. I had feared the house was destroyed, but it turned out to be John Wick, amidst his dreams of constructing a hotel with a mere flick of his wand, paid no mind to his desires, and proceeded to have breakfast alone." It was only then that Watson Wick found a moment to examine the curious envelope that had caught his eye. To his astonishment, the number 8 on the envelope seemed to stretch as if alive. The address read, 1997, 6 Privet Drive, Little Winging, Surrey, Qing Dynasty, received by Watson Wick. The sender was listed as 1927 John Wick. Watson was taken aback by the contents of the envelope. As he continued to read, the text on the envelope mysteriously changed. "Don't let me find out," it warned. Watson hesitated, recalling his son's advice that magical items of unknown origins could be perilous. Could this be a trap? While he pondered, the message on the envelope altered once more. "Ask me for strawberry jam, and I'll give you blueberry jam." Glancing at the jars of jam on the table, Watson casually requested, "John, pass me the strawberry jam," trying to appear nonchalant. After a brief pause, he looked at the envelope again, curious about the prankster behind it. Convinced his son wouldn't fall for such a trick, Watson spread what he believed to be strawberry jam on his bread. However, upon tasting it, he realized something was amiss. The jam was blueberry, not strawberry. Watson, puzzled, asked John, "Did you do this on purpose, or was it an accident?" "Careless," John replied, his tone not betraying any jest. The message on the envelope changed once more. "Open it after I'm gone." Watson, eager to uncover the truth, inquired about John's plans to work at the mysterious magic company. Watson felt a mix of pride and envy. He had worked hard to establish his own business, yet his son had surpassed him by joining this enigmatic company. The breakfast seemed to stretch on forever until John finally left for the basement. Mrs. Wick brought Watson his jasmine tea, and seizing the moment, Watson tiptoed to the basement door to listen. Once he was sure John had departed, he hurriedly secured the house, drawing the curtains with a sense of urgency. "What's wrong with you?" Mrs. Wick asked, amused by her husband's antics, likening him to a child caught up in his imagination. Watson, taking a deep breath, opened the envelope. Inside, he found a piece of parchment and a golden beetle, which revealed a black octahedron stone when its wings vibrated. The first line on the parchment sent a chill down Watson's spine. "Take the stone and make sure I'm dead." "This is the resurrection stone. If I die, I can see my soul," the message continued. The revelation overwhelmed Watson, who had to steady himself against the table. The resurrection stone purportedly allowed the living to see the souls of the deceased. If John were to die, the Wick family would be able to see his soul. What happened? Mrs. Wick, sensing her husband's distress, moved closer, only to be stopped by Watson's vehement, "Don't come here." His warning left her stunned and confused. With trembling hands, Watson reached for the resurrection stone, fearing the implications of its power. He hesitated to let his wife approach, knowing the potential shock could be devastating. As he lifted the stone, he braced himself for the sight of his son's soul, but saw nothing, which brought him a momentary relief. The message continued, "If I survive, follow the guidance of the beetle and find my sword." It went on to explain that the sword was forged with John's blood and could only be wielded by his close relatives. Watson, now embroiled in a mystery that intertwined magic, family, and destiny, realized the gravity of the situation. The journey ahead promised to reveal secrets that would test the bonds of the Wick family and their connection to the magical world. "Find it," the note concluded. "Bring Basil and Riddle. Owls possess guiding magic. They can lead you to my home in the wizarding world." As Watson finished reading, the parchment began to fold itself automatically, transforming into a card the size of a business card. It bore the Ouroboros emblem, shimmering in gold. The golden beetle then flew into Watson's palm. He winced as the beetle bit his finger, drawing blood. After it had absorbed enough, the beetle took flight once more. Watson, feeling a mix of urgency and curiosity, exclaimed, "Quick, we must follow it." Mrs. Wick set her glasses aside and, together with her husband, hurried outside. They got into their car and began the chase after the golden beetle, which moved swiftly through the air. The journey led them through winding roads and over hills, the beetle always just a bit ahead, its golden glow a beacon in the twilight. The landscape around them began to change subtly, the air tingling with a sense of magic that grew stronger with every mile they covered. As they followed, the realization dawned on Watson and the Wicks that they were no longer in the familiar world they knew. The roads less resembled those of the mundane world, and more those of tales and legends, where magic was as common as the air they breathed. The golden beetle, unerring in its path, finally slowed, allowing them to catch up. It led them to a house that seemed to have sprung from the pages of a storybook, nestled in a clearing that was alive with the sounds and colors of a world untouched by time. The beetle, having completed its task, hovered in front of the house's ornate door, which bore the same Ouroboros emblem as the card. With a final buzz, the beetle vanished, leaving behind a sense of anticipation and wonder. Watson and the Wicks, now standing before the door, knew they were on the threshold of an adventure. The magic that had guided them here was just the beginning. With a shared look of determination, they prepared to step into the wizarding world, unsure of what awaited them, but ready to face it together. Chapter 558, A Letter from the Past. The relationship between the Weasley family's matriarch and her daughter-in-law, Fleur, had always been tense. After the battle at Hogwarts, Fleur decided to return to her native France, seeking solace with her sister, who was attending Beauxbatons. The Delacours were a well-respected French family with a rich history. Though not listed among the 28 pureblood families, their influence in France was undeniable. "I despise social events," Gabrielle Delacour complained, adjusting her skirt. Like her sister, Gabrielle was blossoming into a beauty at a young age. Together, they were like two exquisite flowers in bloom. Fleur's participation in the Hogwarts battle had earned her the status of a war hero. Upon her return to France, the Ministry of Magic honored her with a Medal of Courage. Mr. Delacour, her father, saw this as an opportunity to celebrate and perhaps to subtly rebuke the Weasley family for not appreciating his daughter's worth. He organized a lavish banquet, inviting renowned wizards and promising young talents to showcase his daughter's accomplishments and to affirm that she needed no one's approval. At the banquet, Fleur was the epitome of grace and beauty, outshining all others. The French Minister of Magic, Charles Roland, attended the event and engaged in conversation with Mr. Delacour. "Your daughter grows more beautiful by the day, reminiscent of her mother," he remarked. "I wonder who will be fortunate enough to win the heart of such a brave and lovely young woman." Mr. Delacour responded modestly, but his pride was evident to all. Minister Roland's intentions were clear. He sought to align himself with the Delacour family, well aware of their connection to the formidable John Wick. Wick, a young wizard who had vanquished Voldemort, had not only established a vast business empire, but also founded a nation of dark wizards. His achievements had sent ripples of concern through the magical communities worldwide. The revelation of Wick's identity as Johnny Silverhand had intensified these fears. Before even reaching adulthood, he had accomplished feats that most wizards could only dream of. With decades of potential still ahead of him, the prospect of what Wick could achieve was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Countries had varied responses to Wick's rise to power, but the French Ministry of Magic was keen on forging an alliance. Such a partnership promised not only a powerful deterrent, but also access to immense benefits and opportunities. Minister Roland, aware that his tenure was drawing to a close, was eager to secure a legacy that would outlast his time in office. Aligning with the Delacour, even indirectly, offered a chance to connect with Wick and the influential star society he was rumored to lead. As the banquet continued, the air was filled with discussions of alliances, power, and the future. Amidst the grandeur and political maneuvering, Fleur remained a figure of elegance and strength, a testament to her family's legacy and a symbol of the potential alliances that could shape the future of the magical world. The desk of Minister Roland was adorned with a dossier that outlined the formation of a formidable group. This assembly comprised 10 members, including 8 of pure-blood lineage, with 5 hailing from the top echelons of the sacred 28 wizarding families. Additionally, 2 families were poised to ascend into the vacant positions within these esteemed ranks. The collective influence of this group was so vast that they could potentially orchestrate a coup to seize control of a country's Ministry of Magic. Among the non-pure-blood members was Kim Lettisley, celebrated as the Ilvermorny's son in the United States, and John Wick. The presence of such formidable individuals in a single organization, despite its modest size, was bound to have a significant impact on the future of the magical world. The fact that John Wick was their leader only added to Minister Roland's concerns about their ambitions towards the wizarding world. "We must secure an alliance with Delacour," he resolved silently, all the while maintaining a jovial facade in his conversation with M. Delacour. Gabrielle, unlike her sister, lacked a certain poise, but had a keen interest in adventure tales. She eagerly awaited another recounting of her sister's experiences with John Wick. Her attention was caught by a peculiar sight outside, a confused messenger, a rarity in a world where owls were the standard for mail delivery. Seizing the opportunity for a distraction, she excused herself and approached the elderly messenger, who seemed to be struggling with the address. "Can I assist you in any way?" Gabrielle inquired, her curiosity piqued. The messenger, appearing to be in his 80s and visibly exhausted, confirmed he was looking for Fleur Delacour's residence. Upon Gabrielle's confirmation, he handed her an envelope marked with the 8 Ouroboros logo, murmuring to himself in confusion about his presence there before wandering off, seemingly oblivious to Gabrielle's existence. Excited by the sender's identity, Gabrielle dashed back to the banquet, her mother chiding her for the lack of decorum. With a restrained pace, she approached Fleur, who was momentarily entangled in a conversation with the Minister of Magic's son. "Sister, Brother Wick has sent you a letter," Gabrielle announced, her excitement barely contained. Fleur's interest was immediately piqued, and she excused herself from the gathering with a grace that belied her eagerness. She affectionately thanked Gabrielle, who handed her the envelope. Fleur was puzzled by the absence of John's usual owl, Basil, known for his direct and somewhat intrusive deliveries. Upon opening the envelope, Fleur's initial confusion gave way to a serious demeanor. The letter was straightforward, a characteristic of John's communication style, informing her of his entrapment in the past due to time magic and requesting her assistance at Silverhand Manor. Without hesitation, Fleur announced her intention to return to England, much to the surprise of her father and the assembled guests. Ignoring the formalities, she transformed her attire for travel, activated the Flu network with a spell, and stepped into the blue flames, leaving the Minister of Magic and her father to exchange awkward smiles at her decisive departure. Meanwhile, the messenger continued his journey into Godric's Hollow, carrying the third letter, unaware of the unfolding events he had set into motion. The young messenger scrutinized the address on the letter in his hand, comparing it to the surroundings. He had circled the area a few times, yet the destination remained elusive. Scratching his head in confusion, he muttered to himself, "It's strange. It should be right here." Just as he began to doubt the authenticity of the letter from France, an old man's voice broke the silence. "I believe that letter is meant for me." Startled, the messenger looked up to find an old man standing before him, seemingly having appeared out of nowhere. The man's appearance was peculiar. His white beard was singed at the ends, giving the impression it had been accidentally scorched by a flame, perhaps from a cooking mishap. The unexpected sight of the old man left the messenger puzzled, prompting him to ask tentatively, "Excuse me, are you Dumbledore?" The question hung in the air, marking the beginning of an unusual encounter. The old man's eyes twinkled with a hint of amusement and wisdom, characteristic of someone who had experienced more than his fair share of life's mysteries. The messenger, still unsure, awaited confirmation, hoping he had finally found the intended recipient of the mysterious letter from France. Chapter 559, The Chase and the Enigma of the Sword. In the bustling heart of London, a scene reminiscent of The Fast and the Furious unfolded. Unlike the iconic movie where nitrous oxide boosts the cars to surreal speeds, here, a car sped through the streets of Canary Wharf without the aid of nitrogen, yet astonishingly managed to shatter the limits of 2 speedometers. The driver, known among the underground circles as the Canary Wharf car god, was none other than Mrs. Wick, with her husband Watson sitting beside her, gripping the seatbelt with both hands, his expression grave. After a moment of contemplation, Watson ventured, "Actually, we could slow down a bit." "Shut up!" Mrs. Wick snapped, her foot pressing down harder on the accelerator. The car surged forward with such force that Watson found himself silenced, the taillights of their car a fleeting memory to the GTR they had just overtaken. Watson couldn't help but regret his decision to secretly upgrade their car without his wife's knowledge. The vehicle's speed was clearly more than he had bargained for. Mrs. Wick's focus was unyielding, her eyes dark with determination as she pursued the elusive golden beetle, their target. In the back seat, 2 owls, one black and one white, observed the scene. The white owl cast a disdainful glance at Watson, its look almost mocking. Ever since learning of her son's predicament, Mrs. Wick had thrown caution to the wind. Their high-speed chase had drawn the attention of the police, with more than a dozen cars in pursuit. Amidst the chaos, Watson received a call from Mr. Mycroft. "Yes, Mr. Mycroft, it's me, Watson," he answered, his voice tense. "There's a reason for this madness. It's not a hunt or a bomb threat. The hotel event will proceed as scheduled. Could you possibly call off the police? I'm concerned about the potential for an accident." Before he could finish, Mrs. Wick executed a sharp turn, drifting around a corner with such skill that the pursuing police car crashed, causing a pileup that blocked the road. "What was that noise, Watson?" came the suspicious inquiry from the other end of the phone. "Ah, nothing," Watson replied, just as an explosion sounded in the background. He quickly reassured, nothing happened, despite the evidence to the contrary. The golden beetle they were chasing was no ordinary vehicle. Under Mrs. Wick's relentless pursuit, it led them across Tower Bridge to the Tower of London, where they abandoned their smoking car and continued on foot. Hovering above the famous White Tower, the 2 owls guided them to St. John's Chapel, where a beam of sunlight illuminated a sword hidden beneath the brown prayer platform. The golden beetle perched on the sword's hilt, which was adorned with a red gem radiating magic. Could this be John's sword? Watson pondered aloud as they approached the artifact. As Watson reached out to grasp the sword, his hand passed through it as if it were an illusion. Confused, he attempted several more times to no avail. Mrs. Wick also tried to touch the sword, but was met with the same result. "Magic," Watson realized, recalling his son's words. "This sword was forged with my blood, and only my closest relatives can find it." The realization dawned on him just as a gunshot rang out, shattering the silence. Dozens of armed men, led by a dark-skinned man adorned with gold jewelry and wielding a revolver, surrounded them. "It's you?" John exclaimed, recognizing the leader. "The Nigerians have been exiled." "Fake," the man retorted, his intentions clear as they faced off in the historic chapel, the mystery of the untouchable sword hanging in the balance. Dahai, the leader, was seething with rage. "Only fools would fall for your tricks. Nigerian lions fear nothing." This area was under the control of the Nigerian gang, notorious for their previous disturbances at the hotel. Watson, having aligned himself with the government and the entire underworld, had managed to exile them, yet he hadn't anticipated their resilience. Now they found themselves isolated in enemy territory, a dire predicament indeed. Without a word, Mrs. Wick turned to face her adversaries. She discarded her cumbersome high heels, and with a swift flick of her wrists, she produced 2 teaspoons she had hastily acquired. Assuming a battle stance, she declared icily, "I will eliminate anyone who stands in the way of rescuing my son." "Spoons?" Dahai couldn't help but laugh upon seeing her choice of weapon. In a mocking tone, he taunted, "What will you do next? Brew me a cup of coffee with those spoons?" His laughter, however, was cut short as he carelessly fired his pistol at Mrs. Wick. The bullet, nearly invisible to the naked eye, whizzed towards her, narrowly missing as it tore through her long black hair. Mrs. Wick ducked swiftly, her movements facilitating a rapid charge forward. The teaspoon in her hand transformed into a streak of golden light, piercing the skull of a henchman who was about to open fire. She moved through the crowd like a specter, utilizing every part of her body as a lethal weapon. No matter how ferocious, every lion must submit before a demon hunter, especially one who is a witcher on a quest to find her son, the alpha of the Jovanovich family. As silver light flashed and gunfire erupted, Mrs. Wick waded into the fray, dispatching her foes with ruthless efficiency. When an assailant attempted to ambush her from behind, her hair unfurled and tightened, slicing through the man's neck as if it were made of steel wire. Blood sprayed, painting her skin with macabre blooms. What in the world is this? Dahai was aghast as he watched his men being decimated by a woman wielding nothing more than teaspoons. Living in Nigeria, a land known for its inhabitants' unique abilities, he had witnessed incredible feats. Yet, the sight of this human killing machine defied all his expectations. Until today, he had never imagined hair could be used as a weapon. "Come on, keep firing! Shoot her down!" Dahai ordered in a panic. The reinforcements, guns blazing, unleashed a barrage of bullets. Even a demon hunter would need to seek cover from such an onslaught. Mrs. Wick dashed for cover, the walls around her crumbling under the impact of the gunfire. Meanwhile, Watson was in a precarious situation. His reinforcements were nowhere in sight, and Dahai had now turned his attention to him. With a sinister grin and a hand axe wielded by one of his men, Dahai advanced towards Watson. "Watson Wick, president of the London Underground? You've got quite the formidable woman by your side," he sneered, his axe gleaming ominously. "My men are quite skilled, you know. Let's see how you fare once I've dismembered you and forced you to watch." Without hesitation, Dahai swung his axe. Watson, rather than evading, charged directly into Dahai's embrace. The two grappled fiercely, Watson landing a solid punch to Dahai's jaw. The axe sliced through Watson's arm, but he didn't relent. Clutching Dahai's arms, Watson resorted to the most primal weapon at his disposal, his teeth. He bit down hard on Dahai's throat, the taste of blood flooding his senses. With a savage tear, he ripped a chunk of flesh from Dahai's neck. Blood gushed as Watson spat out the flesh, his gaze locked on the dying Dahai. In a final act of defiance, he reached for Dahai's eyes, plucking them out and crushing them in his hands. The air was filled with the sound of Dahai's agonized screams, a grim testament to the brutal struggle for survival in the underworld. Watson stood defiantly, his gaze piercing through the chaos as the gunfire ceased. A group of men, their faces etched with fear, stared back at him, horrified by the gruesome spectacle he had just enacted. The sight of him savagely biting off his elder brother's neck in a single, ferocious bite had branded him a specter from the darkest depths of hell in their eyes. "Don't be afraid of him. Kill him," bellowed the second in command, his voice laced with anger and desperation. "He's alone. Kill him." Meanwhile, Mrs. Wick found herself pinned down by a relentless barrage of gunfire. Amid sank the chaos, Watson, with a determined shake, stood up, gripping a hand axe he had taken from Dahai. As the group of assailants raised their guns in unison, Watson raised his axe in defiance, his voice resonating with resolve. The blood of the father, the sword of the son. Clasping the sharp blade of the axe in his left hand, Watson drew blood with a swift motion, the sound of steel piercing flesh echoing through the air. The Nigerian gang members watched in bewildered horror, convinced of his madness, as he inflicted wounds upon himself amidst the confrontation. Yet, Watson's actions were far from the ramblings of a madman. As his blood flowed, glinting under the sunlight, it beckoned to something ethereal. Touched by the blood of kin, the legendary sword of Silver Wick began to materialize from the realm of shadows. With a decisive motion, Watson released the hatchet and reached out, his fingers wrapping around the hilt of the emerging sword. This time, his grasp met no resistance. With a ferocious growl, Watson drew the sword, revealing its silver blade adorned with precious stones. This was no mere weapon, it was a masterpiece, a testament to the legacy of the Wick family. Holding the sword in his left hand, Watson pointed it towards the Nigerian gang, a silent challenge hanging in the air. "Let me see what you are capable of," Watson murmured to himself, recalling John's words, "I am a fire dragon." As if responding to his call, flames ignited along the blade, casting a fierce glow that illuminated the church. Within the fire, a dragon roared, its presence shaking the very foundations of the building. In that moment, Watson stood not just as a man, but as a legend reborn, wielding the sword passed down from father to son, ready to carve his path through the shadows. Chapter 560. This time, it's our turn to save the king. As passengers were evacuated from the Tower of London, a man stepped out of his car, only to be greeted by a violent explosion. The White Tower, with its history spanning nearly 1,000 years, was now enveloped in thick smoke, its windows' glass melting rapidly. Terrible cracks spread across the structure, marking it as a hazard. The man, staring at the now dangerous historical building, gritted his teeth and muttered, "So much for nothing happened, Watson Wick." A golden fire dragon burst through the outer wall, its roar echoing as the wind pressure it generated swept away several nearby policemen. "Sir, we cannot confirm if there will be a third explosion," a policeman reported, glancing back at his colleagues who were caught in the blast, a trace of fear in his voice. Mycroft Holmes watched the scene with a grim expression, his thoughts unreadable. Meanwhile, Watson Wick stood amidst the chaos, the sword in his hand still smoking. Around him, the aftermath was grim, bodies charred beyond recognition, frozen in their last moments. The golden fire dragon beside him split into 3 smaller dragons, circling him. "Is this John's power?" Watson marveled, having never directly witnessed such magical force. His thoughts quickly turned to his wife, and he rushed through the ruins to find her. Mrs. Wick eyed Watson suspiciously, prompting an awkward smile from him. If not for the dragon's sudden change in direction, she might have suspected her husband of trying to replace her as their son's mother. "Honey, are you okay?" he asked. "I am fine," she replied, their eyes locking with affection. The adrenaline-fueled adventure had only deepened their bond. As they leaned in for a kiss amidst the flames, they were interrupted by 2 owls, one black and one white, staring at them. Watson coughed, trying to maintain his composure under their gaze, while Mrs. Wick blushed, embarrassed by her earlier display of affection. They quickly separated, and she covered her rosy cheeks, asking, "What should we do about this fire?" Outside, the fire brigade faced the same dilemma. The golden flames continued to spread, resistant to the high-pressure water cannons. It seemed the fire was inextinguishable. Since it was conjured by John's sword, perhaps it can be undone the same way, Watson speculated. He waved the Silverwick sword, commanding, "Take back this fire." The 3 fire dragons responded, their roars filling the air as they flew, absorbing the eternal flames back into their bodies. The thick smoke dissipated, and when the dragons returned, they had grown larger. "What's John's next step?" Mrs. Wick inquired, standing up. "Ah, our son," Watson remembered, his mind racing. "We need to go to his house in the wizarding world." He turned to the 2 owls, asking, "Do you know the way?" Riddle, the owl, nodded and took flight. Watson and Mrs. Wick hurriedly followed, navigating through the aftermath towards the White Tower's exit. The scene outside was chaotic, filled with armed forces, police, firefighters, and bomb disposal experts. Watson, slightly disoriented, was suddenly called out. "Watson!" Mycroft Holmes stared at him, anger evident in his tone. "Mycroft?" Watson replied, surprised. Noticing his car being doused by firefighters, he approached Mycroft with Mrs. Wick in tow. "You have nothing to explain," Mycroft demanded. "Give me the car keys, it's urgent," Watson responded simultaneously, both men speaking over each other. Mycroft was taken aback. "What do you mean, asking for the car keys now? Don't you realize the gravity of what's happened to one of Britain's ancient landmarks?" Mycroft's expression was grim as he addressed the driver beside him. "Hand over the car keys." His gaze then shifted to Watson, piercing and serious. "I expect a thorough explanation by 4:15 this afternoon." "I will provide one," Watson assured, quickly taking the keys and sliding into the car, deliberately choosing the passenger seat. As the black SUV skillfully maneuvered away from the pursuing police cars, Mycroft couldn't help but press a hand to his forehead, muttering about the chaos. If it weren't for Watson's involvement in a matter beneficial to the nation, Mycroft would have issued a warrant for his arrest without hesitation. Now, standing amidst the ruins of St. John's graveyard, Mycroft surveyed the aftermath of the explosion. The sight of a charred figure prompted him to wonder aloud, "Watson, what have you done?" An MI6 agent accidentally disturbed one of the bodies, causing it to disintegrate. "The temperature here must have plummeted to at least 9,000 degrees Celsius," observed an analyst with a receding hairline. Mycroft, however, was focused on the corpses that seemed frozen in their final moments. To carbonize a body instantly, the temperature must have exceeded 5,000 degrees Celsius, he concluded, his mind racing with possibilities. Watson, what exactly happened here? Was a small nuclear device detonated? He ordered the MI6 team to seal off the area and update Wick's file to reflect the gravity of the situation. Suspected of possessing weapons of mass destruction, to be listed at the highest level of concern, he declared. This incident had the agency bustling, as it hadn't since the upheaval within London's underground factions. Mycroft pondered Wick's mysterious background, suspecting connections to powerful figures and hidden family ties, all while Watson himself seemed to lead a double life of significant influence and secrecy. Meanwhile, Watson and his wife were guided by Riddle Grand Manor in the suburbs of London, a sight that left Watson feeling a mix of awe and regret for his own modest living conditions. "It's like stepping into Downton Abbey," he remarked, trying to maintain a semblance of parental authority despite the disparity in their living situations. As they approached the manor, they were scrutinized by security guards and wizards, though the presence of the Black Owl seemed to grant them passage. Inside, they were greeted warmly by their son's friends, including Percy, who had left his ministry job to be there. "This time, it's our turn to help John," Percy declared, with Malfoy adding a casual note of support for their king. Heinrich and Jin prepared for action with their wands at the ready, while Daphne stepped forward with a solemn promise of assistance, causing a moment of confusion with the familial titles being used. This gathering marked the beginning of a united front, as friends and allies came together to support Wick, hinting at the depth of his connections and the complexity of the challenges they were about to face. "Could it be that my sister had finally mastered it?" Shaking his head, Astoria patted his face, trying to buoy his spirits. He knew he couldn't afford to make a mistake now. Malfoy, observing Astoria's actions, silently applauded in admiration. "My Astoria is indeed the cutest," he thought to himself. Fleur, on the other hand, could barely conceal her disdain for Malfoy. Did he really think his adoration was invisible to others? Without hesitation, she pulled Astoria behind her, as if to shield her from Malfoy's gaze. Malfoy inwardly cursed, frustrated by the interruption. Mrs. Wick, witnessing the scene, was deeply touched and found herself on the verge of tears. Before a single tear could escape her eyes, it was magically drawn towards the center of the room. Watson, feeling an unusual warmth emanating from his pocket, retrieved a card. He watched in fascination as the blood that had begun to seep from his hand was absorbed by the card. Simultaneously, Watson approached the center of the room, brandishing a sword with determination. He thrust it downwards with all his might. Fu Rong, following suit, also took out her card and observed as it soared towards the center, aligning perfectly with Watson's card. The two cards merged and vanished, and the Ouroboros depicted on them released its tail, transforming into a figure 8. It entwined itself around the jewel on the hilt of the Silverwick's sword, symbolizing infinity. At that moment, every member of the Star Club, as if moved by an unspoken signal, raised their wands. A brilliant beam of magical energy was directed at the sword of Silverwick from all sides. The collective magic, amplified by the Philosopher's Stone's blessing, reached the anchor point of time. A golden portal exploded into existence, marking the culmination of their efforts and the beginning of something extraordinary. The scene was a testament to the power of unity and the profound impact of their shared goal. As the golden light enveloped the room, it was clear that they had embarked on a journey that would transcend the boundaries of time and space, guided by the ancient magic of the Ouroboros and the unwavering bond between them.